think this is it, everybody. Doing an audio check here. This is Fox News America. Returning to work. This could be just a commercial. It's with Fox, it's almost impossible to tell. They just aired a Trump ad that was fairly pro-Trump and mostly misleading. How do we stay safe? Let's get back out there and touch each other. Record number of virus deaths yesterday. So let's get everybody back to work.
Good
I might go get my first tattoo.
To our nation's capital for an unprecedented television event, a virtual Fox News town hall, live from the Lincoln Memorial with the President of the United States. America together.
We check and see if we're broadcasting. If you're in the chat room, say hi so I know that someone's watching.
And I'm Martha McCallum. We are just moments away from President Trump joining us here at this historic memorial to the 16th president. And it meets this historic time. The nation, of course, is still doing all of the social distancing and everything that we have become so used to right now. That's why there is no live audience with us here tonight.
Instead, over the past week, you've been sending video questions for the president. He will answer them tonight, from teachers and auto workers to doctors and business owners, even Americans recovering from COVID-19. These are all voices from across America, all across America, from all walks of life.
And just like you, they want to get back to work.
Like
they
me?
want to go back to school. They want to go back
My
to
job's
their
gone.
churches and places of worship.
I don't
But of
need to
course,
go back
like
to
you,
church.
some of
God's
them
everywhere.
are nervous
So,
about all
I mean,
of
my
that
mother was a
and looking
Lutheran
to the
minister,
government
and that's
for
what she
some
told me.
answers and some action.
Was my mom lying?
Tonight's town hall is quite different than the one we hosted exactly 2 months ago in Scranton, Pennsylvania, just before the lockdown orders paralyzed the country. Since then, the U.S. economy has dropped to historic lows, with more than 30 million
that's selfish.
unemployment claims. In
Just
the past
because
6
you
weeks
want to
alone,
stay alive doesn't mean that
more than
everyone does.
67,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. There are more than 1.1 million coronavirus cases.
Some pretty stunning numbers. So before the president joins us here, Chief White House correspondent John Roberts takes a look at where America and the White House
we're not
stand
interested in
tonight
that. We love John,
to
but
start
let's
to get
move on.
this country going again.
I like the states opening. They will be opening. They're going to open safely and quickly, I hope, because we have to get our country back.
As he left for Camp David on Friday, President Trump reinforcing the dilemma facing America's leaders.
I'm going to shut John up for a second here. The president set up, actually his doctors, obviously, put out a list of 14, or a list of guidelines that all states had to meet before opening. Not one of the states that are opening up at all has met those guidelines. They included 14 days in a row of a downturn in cases, in new cases, and no state has matched that. We keep getting more and more cases because, you know, it's a transmissionable virus.
When only one person was doing something wrong. We can't just make blanket assessments.
There seems little question the pandemic will have a profound effect on the November election. One of President Trump's strongest assets, the economy, is on life support.
Coming into frame
30
like
million
that. I can do
claims
that.
for unemployment in the past 6 weeks, and a 4.8% loss in GDP in the first quarter.
We know the economy is still in a terrible contractionary phase. Tremendous hardships everywhere.
That's why, at every opportunity, President Trump articulates a bullish outlook on an economic rebound.
The fourth quarter is going to be, I really believe it's going to be terrific, and I think that
he
next year
believes
is going to
it.
be a great year.
President Trump also siding with protesters, increasingly agitated about continued closures, taking aim at governors like Michigan Democrat Gretchen Whitmer, tweeting last week, Whitmer should give a little and put out the fire.
No, he didn't
These
say
are very
Whitmer. He
good
said the
people,
governor of
but
Michigan
they
because he can
are
never
angry.
remember her name.
Whitmer,
she's that woman.
She's not taking any marching orders from Washington.
I'm going to continue to do my job regardless of what tweets come out. We're going to listen to.
Check out her face. Someone that I used to know, somebody.
Balancing acts, how to protect the health and safety of Americans while at the same time moving to reopen quickly enough that the economic damage that we're seeing each and every day doesn't become permanent.
Did he match that suit to his hair? Looks good.
Could have devastating consequences. Martha?
John, thank you very much.
As we await the president, let's turn now to Republican Governor
Larry
Larry
always
Hogan
sounds
from Maryland,
drunk.
whose state remains
Oh,
on
there's Larry
lockdown
Hogan.
tonight. Governor, thanks for being here with us.
What about Trump? Are we going to
You,
have like an hour
49
of this
other
before they get to
governors, are
Trump?
dealing with the situation on the ground, unique to your state. Tonight, for you, what's your biggest concern, and where are you?
Well, you know, I'm a lifelong small business owner, and nothing matters to me more than getting our economy back on track.
What cartoon character does he look like?
I'm very concerned about the people that are out of work and about the small business owners that are suffering. But we laid out a reopening plan about 10 days ago that followed the president's guidelines, and unfortunately, our
Gino, you're absolutely right.
Started to decline or even plateau. We're still going up. And so we're going to be taking a look at it every day to see when we can start to get things back opened up again safely.
So, Governor Hogan, you have suggested that the federal government hasn't given you everything that you require in terms of testing and, you know, all of the reagents and swabs and all of that. I want you to listen to Governor Murphy of New Jersey when he was asked about this question, and then I'll ask you yours on the other side. Watch this.
We've been able to find common ground, again, based on the science, based on the facts and the reality. And in our hour of need, I have to thank the president and his team. They have been there for us, and I
Yeah, a
appreciate
little bit
that
like
enormously.
Dilbert. Yeah. Humpty
Do you agree
Dumpty's
with him
also
on that?
good.
Well, I don't know whether I agree with what he did for New Jersey, but I can tell you I chair the nation's governors, and the administration has been doing a great job of communicating with all of us, and I think they've been really stepping up and doing a much better job. That we are all starting to get much more supply.
Fox is news sometimes, but they fully admit that their nighttime lineup is opinion. It's entertainment. That's how they classify it.
In the past few days on an outbreak we had on our eastern shore, and we're very grateful for that.
So when it comes to testing, you think you have everything you need now?
I don't think there's any governor in America that would say that we have everything that we need with respect to testing, and we've all been fighting and clawing to try to find
That's
all
a
of
Republican,
these different
by the way.
components. I think the federal government has done a good job of stepping up. I think they're trying to ramp up production. I understand there's an announcement coming tomorrow with respect to potentially getting more swabs. We're trying to fight to
swabs.
in each
Are we
state,
doing drinking game
all the
today?
50 states have been
Swabs.
fighting to get more additional supplies on our own, and the federal government's been trying to work on that as well.
So, you know, their take is that the governors have what they have asked for, and in some cases, Brett Giroir, who is running a lot of the testing on the White House task force, said that Maryland was given even a little bit more than what they've been giving everyone else. So, you know, is that your take, that you've gotten what you need from the federal government?
Boy, they're really pressing him on this.
Well, the president said about a week or so ago that states were on their own and that testing was a local thing and they should go out and do that themselves. And that's really basically what we did. We went out and got 500,000 tests from Korea. We bought tests from
they went to
different
South
labs
Korea.
all across
Hogan
the
went to
United
South.
States.
A Republican
But the federal
governor
government
had
has
to
been
go to
stepping
South
up
Korea
recently,
to get 500,000 tests.
FEMA has been getting us
After,
other supplies. That
like
have been
he
very
said,
helpful,
Trump
and
said,
we've,
you're on your
thanked
own.
the president and his team for that help.
And
But he still has to
those
praise him.
protesters
Otherwise,
who are
he
out
gets
there, or
nothing
just
more
small
going
business
forward.
people who
That's
just
the way
say,
Trump works.
Gosh, we can't
Nick.
deal with this much longer.
You know, I sympathize with them. Like I said, I'm a lifelong small business owner. I understand how difficult it is, and I have a reopening plan that follows the president's guidelines and follows the NGA plan that we put out for all the governors. We're hoping we can get our numbers to plateau so we can get things open as quickly as possible, because we got too many people not working and too many businesses that are suffering. But we also want to make sure we do it in a safe way, because sadly our numbers are climbing. Our deaths are climbing, and we've got to make sure that we don't see the spike that we've seen in other places like New York and New Jersey and elsewhere across the country.
Georgia.
All right, Governor Hogan, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Good to see you, sir. So when we come back, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, will be here to take your questions live
Will he,
from the
though?
Lincoln Memorial.
Will he, or are you just going to like tease us out more so that it's 9 o'clock by the time Trump walks out, or lumbers out? Really, that's the way he walks. Speaking of praises, Lizzie became a big patron, and she gets a t-shirt. So Lizzie, I've got to work on a t-shirt for you, as well as Rich Mack. No, wait, Lizzie, did you? No, Martha Lever became a big patron. Lizzie, are you a patron yet? I'd have to look at my patron list, find out. But yeah, I'll sing your praise. Anyway, who wants to be praised right now? I'll praise anybody. We got a commercial coming up. So I've got that on silent. I'm going to put my headphones down. I'm going to blind myself to this. I feel like a Republican. Let's see what else is going on. So while we're waiting, Trump did some interesting things on Dan Bongina's show the other day. Basically, he admitted that he was going to pardon Flynn one way or the other. He said that he was going to be proven innocent one way or the other. In fact, I think I have that. Yes, you're a resistor. I thought that was you, Lizzie. Okay, but you're registered otherwise. But yeah, you're a resistor, so you do get a t-shirt. Some of you, if you were watching my first broadcast, I don't have the t-shirt with me, but I have a t-shirt made by the wonderful and talented Patrick Bennett. If you want to see his photographs and designs, go to patrickbennett.com. That's 2 N's, 2 T's in Bennett. And Patrick made a t-shirt that said, in jail, no one can hear you tweet. And it's got a picture of Trump in bars. And anyway, if you saw the first broadcast that I did, if not, you can go back on YouTube and you can see the t-shirt. I don't have a t-shirt designed for Heavenly Father yet, but I will get one of those Patrick t-shirts for you and send it out if you become a resistor. How do I do that, Kevin? Well, I'll tell you. Go to kevinleefather.com. And you will help support this broadcast and other broadcasts like it. I'm going to keep doing this and fact-checking what happens in this whole coronavirus situation as this moves forward, and hopefully do a lot more than that as well. I want to get some parody songs out there, etc., etc. You can see all of those right now if you go to youtube.com/kevinleefather. You'll see what I've done with this so far. I've been making parody tunes since, I don't know, about 2009. That's right, Lizzie. You are registered, I think, as Elizabeth. I've got you there somewhere. Let's, I mentioned the thing about Flynn. I do have
It's a disgrace. He's an innocent man, and one way or the other, he's innocent. And you know what that means. One way or the other, he's innocent.
So there you go. He basically guaranteed that he would one way or the other. And you know what that means. Either Flynn is going to get cleared or by the courts, which that's not going to happen because the new FBI evidence is absolutely nothing compelling. Or when the courts decide, no, you need to get sentenced, he's going to pardon him. So that's what Trump does, right? All right, still more commercials going on here. So if anyone has any questions as we go forward, sorry, it's hard to do the talking, having the commercials going in my head at the same time. Anybody got some cool masks? Hey, shoot me a DM on Twitter if you have anything that you want other people to see, cool masks and or otherwise. This is kind of cool. Kevin Lee's son, a couple of years ago, he bought a Halloween costume, and he had to have a surgical mask for Tony. Flynn's not going to walk, only after being pardoned. But yeah, the new evidence on Flynn is just the FBI doing its job, and it has been completely misrepresented. We might cover that today. We might not. But the right wing is blowing it way out of proportion, basically saying that the FBI was trying to nail Flynn in a lie. Here we go. And that was simply not the case. Here's the audio.
Fox News virtual town hall, America Together, returning to work. Here tonight, live from the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., we are joined now by President Donald Trump. Good to see you, sir.
Well, thank you both very much.
He looks like he's sitting on the toilet.
We never had a more beautiful set than this, did we?
That's right.
Amazing.
Thanks for doing this. This is a little different than our last town hall in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
It's President Dump.
Questions from around the country.
Good.
And a lot of great questions. I want to start with this, though, Mr. President. There is a real split in the country. There are folks out there becoming increasingly angry about the closures. There are many Americans also who are angry about the reopenings. They're fearful. As many of these states are on the rise in their numbers, there's 66,000 deaths, more than that now.
Yeah.
As president, what do you say to the people who
a
are
lot of
scared
people
to
dying.
go
What are you
back
going to do?
work on one side? And what do you say to the people who are really angry about these lingering closures?
Well, I think you can satisfy both. If you're scared, you're going to stay back a little bit and you're going to watch it.
And I think anyone over 60, because we have a pretty good roadmap right now. Anybody over 60, you could say 65, but let's make it 60. We have to protect those people, and we have to watch it, and maybe they stay back longer. But no, I think you can really have it both ways. I think a lot of people want to go back. They just want to go back. You see it every day. You see demonstrations all over the country, and those are meaningful demonstrations. Oh, it's big stuff. But you also have some people that are very scared. Probably everybody's scared when you get right down to it. It's a terrible thing that happened to our country. It came from China. It should have been stopped. It could have been stopped on the spot. They chose not to do it, or something happened. Either there was incompetence or they didn't do it for some reason. And we're going to have to find out what that reason was. But people are absolutely scared. But there are other people that are scared about being locked in a room and losing their job and not having any income. And, you know, for the first time, these are workers. These are people that want to get back and work and make a living. And they're afraid their job's not going to be there. And at a certain point, if you keep it going too long, that's going to happen. So my
job's already gone, but
on that note, let's hear from our first video questioner. This is Shayna Cruz from Coleman, Alabama.
Mr. President, my name is Shayna Cruz, and I'm a single mother from Alabama. I lived paycheck to paycheck before the virus, but then I lost my job in March. I haven't received a stimulus payment or anything from unemployment. I'm behind on every bill, about to be evicted from my home, and I've had to rely on donations in order to feed my children. I feel frustrated, and I feel scared not knowing where to turn or what to do. What advice do you have for me and others in my situation? Is there more help coming?
First off, get the hell out of Alabama.
We have really no choice because incredible people like this are, you know, it's not your fault.
Well, you do have a choice.
Just remember that it's not your fault. And there is more help coming. There has to be. And we want.
Okay, Alabama and many other states, especially those with older systems, are having huge problems getting people their unemployment system, unemployment checks. Here in Washington, the website is working. It's great. It's a state run by liberals. But the unemployment site works. They approve you no matter what right off the bat and start sending you money, even though you may not be finalized. They take a look at your claim, and in my case, I put my claim in 2 days later. They sent me the questions. They haven't made a final determination yet, but meanwhile, while they're making that determination, they're going to start giving me money, including the $600 a month of the CARES package that Congress has already allocated. So that woman that we just saw, God bless her, she should be receiving money, and a lot of it right now. She should be making her $600 per week per Congress, plus whatever she's owed by the state of Alabama for paying into their unemployment system all this time. This is not anyone's fault but Alabama.
We want to get it to a point when we open, we're not going to lose businesses, and therefore, more importantly, frankly, we're not going to lose the jobs that run the businesses. So a case like that is an
Nick will make up for the time during the commercials.
Really,
they're going to play a lot of commercials.
Why we have to do more, and we're going to do more, and everybody wants to do more. It's actually on that aspect of it, it's very bipartisan. So the answer is yes, we're going to do more, and you're going to have your job. You're going to get another job, or you're going to get a better job. You get a job where you make more money, frankly, and I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have an incredible following year. We're going to go into a transition in the third quarter, and we're going to see things happening that look good. I really believe that. I have a good feel for this stuff. I've done it for a long time. We built the greatest economy in the world. The greatest economy, frankly, Brett, and you can correct me if you'd like, but you can't because it's fact. The greatest economy that the world has ever seen. And then one day...
I can correct him. Last year's growth was 2.3 GDP. That's not pathetic, but it's barely above water. Plus, we had $1 trillion deficit last year. We're going to have a lot higher this year, and that was $1 trillion deficit under the tax plan that Mr. Trump came up with. I mean, Clinton had surpluses. Greatest economy ever. That's ridiculous.
They said, sir,
this is a lie.
I said, what are you talking about closing it? Nobody ever heard that.
Trump didn't close anything.
And
the governors have closed things.
I think we saved millions of lives. But now we have to get it back open, and we have to get it back open safely, but as quickly as possible.
You know, let me ask you about that, because you've talked about that moment quite a bit with just this roaring economy.
How am I going to make more money after this is done?
We've got to shut it down at this point. So when you look back on that moment and you see some other examples, Japan,
yeah, Stephanie,
for example,
he's raising minimum wage.
Do as broad a shutdown. They've only lost about 500 people out of 130 million.
You're right, but now they're doing a massive shutdown because they've been hit very hard. And so you're right about it.
Yeah, that's my question. Do you ever look back at that moment in the Oval Office and say, maybe we went too far?
No, we did the right thing. I do look back on it because my attitude was, we're not going to shut it down. Look,
you didn't shut it down.
Anywhere from 75, 80 to 100,000 people.
What's
That's
he
a
looking
horrible
at?
thing. We shouldn't lose one person over this. This should have been stopped in China. It should have been stopped. But if we
It
didn't
wasn't,
do it,
so you deal with it.
The minimum we would have lost is 1.2 million, 1.4 million, 1.5 million. That's the minimum. We would have lost probably higher than, it's possible, higher than 2.2. You know the way you have to look at that? I've
Thank
never
God
seen
for the
death
governors.
like this. I've never personally experienced anything like it. And they talk about the flu and all of that. Well, I've known people that had the flu all my life. I was lucky. I never had the flu. Then I came here. They want to give a flu shot. And I said, I don't want a flu shot, but they have to give it. But you know what? I've known people that had the flu all of my life. Nobody ever died.
His grandfather died from the
When
flu.
he died. I've lost 3 friends. One, a very good friend, a very successful man, New York guy, employed a lot of people. They were all crying over his death. Stanley Shearer. He went to the hospital. He calls me up because I tested positive. I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to the hospital. I'll call you tomorrow. He didn't call. I called the hospital. He's in a coma. Now, I know a lot of people that had the flu. They were never in a coma. This is a very advanced, this is a very horrible thing we're fighting. But with all of that said, we've learned a lot about it. It affects older people. It affects, if you have any problem.
It affects everybody.
Heart, diabetes, even a little weak heart, a little diabetes, a little.
This is dangerous.
Thing is vicious, and it can take you out, and it can take you out very strongly.
It
But
affects
children
people
do
who are
very well.
completely
Young
healthy.
Children do better.
32-year-old near me died.
Teens.
No
So you think
pre-existing
you've learned
conditions.
from this, how you've dealt with it now.
Yeah.
If it comes up in the fall, you'll do something different.
Yeah, we'll put out the embers.
Keep watching,
we'll put
Phil,
out
to
whatever
boost
it
my
may be.
numbers.
We may have
So
to put out
make sure
fire.
you
I
keep
tell you one
chatting,
thing.
too. Thank
We
you.
did the right thing, and I really believe we could have saved 1.5 million lives. And by the way, just to know what that means, we've seen death like Elmhurst Hospital in Queens, right where I grew up, right near where I grew up. Know the building very well, know the hospital. They had body bags lined up in hallways. They had body bags sitting out on sidewalks. We've never seen that in this country. You saw the mass grave. It's called Hart's Island.
We
They built
have
a
in
mass
1918,
grave. I've never seen anything like
1919.
that. When you look at that and that's with, let's say it's 100,000 or 90 or 95. Now multiply it out. Don't go 2.2 or 2.5 million. Say it's half of that. So take the numbers that we looked at that nobody in this country has ever witnessed, and now multiply it times 15
Flu
or 20.
pandemic, 1918,
So instead of
which
having
he's
10
going
or
to talk
12
about,
body
call it
bags laying in a
1917.
hallway, you'd have 15 times more than that?
That's the scary
It's too
part
bad,
for
Robin.
business owners who are getting ready to open up. Our next question comes from here in D.C., and it's a topic we received a lot of questions about, and that is testing and what people have to do. Take a listen.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarah Poland. I'm the owner of Supergirl based in Washington, D.C., and I'd like to know what kind of federal protocols are going to be in place regarding testing to ensure that my potential customers and staff feel safe when people are leaving their homes. For example, if someone comes from another state that doesn't have the same testing standards as another, and they both come to my establishment, how are we all going to feel safe?
I'm the biggest jerk ever.
Look,
Thanks,
it
Stephen.
depends
Keep
on
watching.
where you're
Helps my
coming
numbers.
from. New York is a very much different place than Montana or many other states, really, where it's not, really too
He's not going to
bad. It's
answer
always
the question
bad.
about
They lose
testing, though.
anybody, it's bad. And every state has lost significant numbers of people. I mean, whether you're talking about 20 people or 25 people, that's a significant number of people. But it depends on where you come from. Certain states are going to have to take a little more time in getting open, and they're doing that. Some states, I think, frankly, aren't going fast enough. I mean, you have some states that, Virginia, they want to close down till the middle of June, and a lot of things that they're doing. I really believe you can go to parks, you can go to beaches, you keep it, you keep the spread, you stay away a certain amount. And I really think the public has been incredible with that's one of the reasons we're successful. That's one of if you call losing 80 or 90,000 people successful, but it's one of the reasons that we're not at that high end of the plane as opposed to the low end of the plane.
That number has changed, Mr. President. You said
Yes,
it's
it has.
going up. 60,
Now
you
it's
said
going
60,
up. I used to
70,
say
now you're
65,000, and now I'm saying 80 or 90, and it goes up, and it goes up rapidly.
Didn't answer the question.
But it's still going to be.
Small
no matter
business
how you look
owner,
at
hey,
it,
how
at the
do I
very
guarantee
lower
safety?
end of the plane, if we did the shutdown.
You said that the governors would be kind of responsible for the testing, and we just talked to Governor Hogan. He says there is federal assistance coming to get specific parts.
Well, not only coming, we've given him a lot of assistance, which is good.
So your son-in-law advisor, Jared Kushner, declared that it's a great success story, the federal response.
It is.
And that when you look at the other side, that you're on the other side medically. Do you think that as deaths are going up and cases are going up, that we really are on the other side medically, and that this is a great success story?
The other side medically?
Well, well, it's too soon to say that, really, I guess, because we're still in the middle of something.
Jared
but
said
certainly
it.
We would have lost a lot more people, Brett, if we would have done, as an example, you call it herd. If we would have done herd, in other words, everything's wonderful. Let's just keep going along.
Herd immunity.
We would have lost 2.5 million people, I think, or.
Right,
so
nobody would have done that.
No, I think I think the American people have done a good job. This is a tragic situation. Everybody knows somebody that's been affected. That's a very rare thing, but everybody knows. Some states have done a better job than others. I mean,
I'm waiting for a vaccine because, I'm a human, and I'm not a Democrat. So, you're wrong, Tony, but keep watching, please. Oh, did he say swab? Hold on.
That's the way it is, but in some states, you can do a lot
Drink up,
less
everybody.
than
He
in
said
other
swab.
states. In New York, I think you're going to have to go around with masks for a while. You're going to have to do separation. You're distancing. You're going to have to do that for a while.
But not in other
states. Some states are doing so well, and others are. I have to tell you, I got to know the governors, and with a few exceptions, to be honest, because they're just political machines. And anything you say, it's always going to be like, what's good politically? Because we shouldn't be in that position.
Not Inslee.
I will say that they really have done, a lot of them, a great job, and we've worked with them. There were no ventilators. We're the king of ventilators.
Yes, you are.
You look at the testing. We tested now 6.5 million people. The next highest
he just said there were no ventilators. That's a complete fabrication. Here's his person talking about how many ventilators were in the stockpile.
So one of the things that we have to prepare for situations like this is a stockpile. And there's over 12, almost 13,000 ventilators that we have, so that if communities, hospitals, other organizations, need to have these ventilators, we can ship that out to them. So
that's Seema Verma saying that there were 13,000 ventilators in the stockpile. So this whole cupboards were empty is a complete lie.
I think it's 2.5 million people, either Germany or South Korea. And South Korea thinks we've done an incredible job. They're saying the job, he's a friend of mine, President Moon. He said the job you've done on testing and the job we've done on ventilators, we have it's one of the greatest buildups we've ever had in this country since certainly the Second World War.
Speaking of that, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor in Michigan, she's saying this morning on TV, we don't have the reagents we need, we don't have the swabs we need. She's still saying that she can't get the testing that she wants.
Look, we had a phone call 5 days ago with the governor.
Look, I just want to tell you, South Korea right now, same day the virus arrived in South Korea and the United States, January 20th, 21st, South Korea has 250 deaths, which is tragic because, every death is terrible. But that's leadership for you.
I was on the call with Vice President Mike Pence, who's done a great job. He's the head of the committee, the task force. Every governor there, we asked it, what do you need? Not one governor needed anything. Now all of a sudden you see her on the Sunday, I watched it. Well, we should get this or we should get that. She ought to get back to running her state.
That's what she sounds like? Well, we should get this and we should get that. He doesn't do a very good woman. Ask around.
Properly. Because she should have brought it up on a phone call. I was on that call for an hour and a half. The call, I stayed right till the end. And at the end I said, does anybody need anything? We had one governor, Inslee, who's always wanting something.
I'm glad you asked, Tony. How big is South Korea? South Korea has 51 million people. So let's take 250 people, and we're going to multiply that by 6.6 in order to make that the same size as the United States if they had the United States population. This is how many dead South Korea has. Can you see that? 1,650. We're at about, what, 1,700? How many? Does anybody know how many dead in the United States right now? It's got to be 1,700, somewhere in that territory. Because, we did great things. This has been a huge success. So thanks for the question, Tony. Moving on.
And frankly, he didn't do a very good job on nursing homes, as far as I'm concerned, state of Washington. And he said, we need Schwabs. I said, why don't you get them yourself?
We
but if
need
you
Schwabs.
can't, we'll get them. And I could say the same thing about her.
I'm
but
counting
here's the
it.
thing.
Schwabs.
Why didn't they bring this up? I had it, you know about the call. It was every week or 2 weeks we'll have a call. All 50 governors, I believe, were on that call. The last statement, okay, who needs something? None of them. Many of them spoke. Nobody needed, other than Washington wanted swabs, which are easy to get, very easy to get.
So let me ask you.
What are you talking about?
The man who you're about to hear from.
They just had a conference earlier this week saying that more swabs were coming because they realized that states were low on swabs. Or Schwabs. He's talking about Schwabs. That's like a stock buying company, isn't it? So yeah, anybody can access Schwabs.com.
Was told he had a 20% chance to live. He had COVID-19. He was in really bad shape. Young. I think he's about 39 years old, actually. 39 years old. But he did recover. And here's Danny Lemos from Grand Island, Nebraska.
Okay.
President Trump, this is Danny again here at Grand Island, Nebraska. With the FDA approving remdesivir as a drug of choice to help fight this, which is the drug I was on, what are we going to do and put in place to make sure that there's enough of this drug available for everybody?
So we're doing that. It's a great question because it's a very hard drug to make, and it takes a period of time, and is made by Gilead. And I know that Danny gave that drug a lot of credit for saving his life. I think that's correct, Danny. But Danny, I believe, gave a lot of credit to that drug for saving his life. We are pushing it really hard. We're also pushing something else, the vaccines. We are very confident that we're going to have a vaccine at the end of the year. By the end of the year, have a vaccine.
By the end of this year?
We think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of this year.
That's new.
And we're pushing very hard. You know, we're building supply lines now. We don't even have the final.
They also said there'd be 27 million tests by the end of March. Has March ended yet? Because we're only at 6.6 million tests.
Vaccine. Johnson & Johnson, if you look at Johnson & Johnson is doing it. We have many.
Adam, I got a secret for you. Trump never banned flights from China. Didn't happen.
Companies are, I think, close because I meet with the heads of them and I find it a very interesting subject because it's so important. But I think we'll have a vaccine by the end of the year. We're also pushing it. Look, we're doing things at the FDA that's never happened before. We're getting approval so fast, like as an example with Gilead on the new remdesivir.
Remdesivir. He says it wrong every
that's
time.
That's a game changer because it's a 31% step. It's a step.
He's such an idiot.
It's a 31% step, and then they'll be at 50%. Like AIDS, what's happened with AIDS? We had AIDS was a scourge all over the world. It was
a scourge.
It was a death certificate. And then all of a sudden they came up with some, and now we will be AIDS-free within 8 years. We started 10 years. Should have started in the previous administration. They did nothing.
So, Mr. President,
it started at my administration.
None of that is true.
He has approved this remdesivir. And
yes.
He's asking, how do you get it? Are you going to use the Defense Production Act to get it?
Well, he got it. I'll tell you, Danny got it, fortunately, and Danny gave it credit for saving his life. We are putting the full power and might behind this drug. With that being said, it's a very hard drug. There are others that are much easier to make. It takes a little period of time to make it. The company is a great company, done incredible work over the years. They are pushing absolutely as fast. You know, this isn't something like let's build machines or this is a very delicate balance, but we're pushing very, very hard on remdesivir.
So our next question is from a teacher in Chesterfield,
Got it wrong twice.
Virginia.
Okay.
Hi, President Trump.
We're going to pause there. We're going to he just called it remdesivir. He just called it, I don't even remember what the last one was. It's called remdesivir. That's what it's called. Let's just take a look back, shall we, at the history of Trump and remdesivir.
There are promising therapies produced by Gilead, and that's
remdesivir.
Remdesivir. We're also studying this and other promising therapies, which is a therapy produced by Gilead, and that would be it's called remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
The ones that I mentioned are very good, but especially I think if you look at remdesivir, the first mention could be an absolute total game changer.
Remdesivir? It's made by a French company, apparently. Back
My name
at
is
it.
Kristen Murray. I'm an
Hi,
algebra
Kristen.
teacher in Virginia. We appreciate you and support you in all you're doing. I would like to see what your ideas are for getting us teachers back into our classrooms. We don't want to be virtual teaching. We want to be in the classrooms with our students. So what's your ideas for getting us back in our classrooms and getting the doors open?
Well,
I
before
agree
you answer
with
that,
you.
Mr.
Yes,
President, just
please.
1 second. A lot of questions tonight, not only from teachers, but also the other side, from students talking about COVID-19. Real quick, put them together here. Rebecca Johnson.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to be a freshman in high school next year, and I worry that coronavirus is going to come back. How will I feel safe going back to school if a second wave hits?
So when you go back, and you have one problem that is a bigger problem, and that's teachers over 60 or 65 years old, the teachers. Because I think that Kristen and Rebecca are going to be in great shape, and they may wear masks for a while, and they may be separated further than what they're used to. And I think they're going to be in great shape. But we have to get our schools back. This virtual teaching is wonderful. And, you know, frankly, it's taken a very positive step. I mean, I could say I've had now essentially board meetings and meetings with governors and other people with, you know, using, they call it tele, right? Tele. And it's not bad, but there's nothing like having a meeting. I
Explains
still
what
think you're never
tele
going to
is.
replace that. No, they're going to go back. We have to have our students go back to school. My biggest thing, because I really feel the students are in great shape, they're going to be all of the things we have to do, all of the things. But I do worry about teachers at a certain age. Rebecca's young, and she's going to be fine. The students are going to be fine. But I really think that, you know, if you take a look, Kristen is going to be fine.
Young
But
people are
if
dying
you have
too,
a teacher
but-
that's 65 or 70 years old and has diabetes, that one, I think they're going to have to sit it out for a little while.
But, Mr. President,
Unless we come up
overall,
with the vaccine sooner.
are you
Okay, we can't come up with. They already have several vaccines. They have to be tested to make sure that they're safe. For those of you watching on Facebook right now, your messages are not showing up on the screen. I know that. That started happening yesterday. Not sure why. If I reset things, then everybody crashes. So we're just going to leave it like it is. But if you do know me on Facebook, you can send me a message. Otherwise, sorry, you're just going to have to be patient. A way to fix that would be go to YouTube, go to youtube.com/KevinLeeFather and start watching the stream there. YouTube is very good with the chat window. And as you can see here from Lizzie Dog over there, if she's on Facebook, you can watch on Facebook and chat either on your PC or on your phone. Usually it works pretty well. So if you're on Facebook, switch over to YouTube or switch over to my Twitter account if you follow me there, at Kevin Lee Father on Twitter, and you'll be able to chat because I know some of you are trying to get through.
Are you going to urge the nation's universities and schools to go back in September?
I am. I want them to go back. We have to get our country back, yeah.
Yeah,
I
screw
don't want to do
science.
this forever. I watched a very good governor, former governor of Indiana, he preceded Mike Pence, good governor, and he's the head of Purdue. It's a great school. And I saw him the other day. He wants to go back. He's going back. Purdue, big school, fantastic. They're going back. We have to go back. We have to go back.
Because?
And whatever it is, I would say, with the exception of teachers at a certain age, maybe they should wait till this thing passes. It will pass. You know, it's going to pass. And a lot of people say we have to get the vaccine. Well, certainly we do. And we have to get therapeutics. I'd rather have right now therapeutics that make people better. That's where remdesivir is really good.
You did talk a lot about hydroxychloroquine
I do, and I
for a
still
while,
do.
And there were some studies that
Oh,
came
hey,
out
Larry.
that questioned the cardiac tie, but you stopped talking about it.
One study, but there were studies that came out that
Most
say
of the schools
it's
are getting
very
out this
good,
month,
too.
Nick. What are you talking
And
about?
I'll tell you what, I've had 3 calls in the last 4 days, of people that took it, and they're giving it credit for saving their lives. And other other countries are using it. They're bragging about it. You look at their numbers. Here's what we've been reduced to in this country. The Democrats, the radical left, whatever you want, would rather see people. I'm going to be very nice. I'm not going to say die. I'm going to say would rather see people not get well because they think I'm going to get credit if, hydroxychloroquine works. And I don't care about it. I have nothing to do with it, by the way. Everyone said I own the company. I have nothing to do with hydroxychloroquine other than if it worked, it would be great. It would be so good for our nation because it would save people. But, you know, we've had some very good, you look at, there are certain countries that swear by it. They have a much lower number. You know the countries I'm talking about.
But you're putting your real chips on the vaccine being fast.
Oh, I think we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. Now, the doctors would say, well, you shouldn't say that. I'll say what I think. I've met with the heads of the big companies. These are great companies. Yeah, I think we're going to have a vaccine much sooner rather than later. I think it will be. I think that will be done. I would rather have, frankly, therapeutic, meaning something to make people better, if not a cure, at least a therapeutic. And, you know, that, look, we started the other day with Gilead. I really think so. But we're going to have other things. And it could be that hydroxy is going to be, we don't lose anything with hydroxy. It's been out there, Brett. It's been out there for so many years. Then they start doing the false reports. It's been used for numerous things for many years. People aren't dying from it. But
obviously,
they would
doctors
rather,
are involved there. And
they don't want to see a good result. And that's very sad.
Let me ask, there are some questions that deal with looking back. Leslie is one of them. Leslie Caulfield from New Jersey has our next question for the panel.
President Trump, it's been widely reported that the threat of the coronavirus was included in your daily intelligence briefings for weeks prior to the first confirmed case in the U.S. Can you please explain to us why you did not act sooner to prepare this country for this pandemic?
Okay, I love the question, actually, because what I did is way early, I closed our country to China. Nancy Pelosi was a month later saying it's going to pass. Everybody, even Tony Fauci was saying it's going to pass, not going to be a big deal. Schumer was talking about all sorts of things. This is long after I closed the country. They called me a racist. They said xenophobic. Biden said he was xenophobic. Biden has now written a letter of apology because I did the right thing. I saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Okay. She's asking me the question about intelligence. I have the head of the intelligence agencies here today. And here's the exact thing. And we have it. It's going to be released tomorrow or the next day. But I released it today. On January 23rd, I was told that there could be a virus coming in, but it was of no real import. In other words, it wasn't, oh, we got to do something, we got to do something. It was a brief conversation, and it was only on January 23rd. Shortly thereafter, I closed down the country to China. And we had 21 people in the room. I was the only one that wanted to close it down. Very good people in the room, very well-meaning. But take a look. On, I think it was February 26th, Nancy Pelosi is Let's Dance in the Streets of Chinatown to show that it's not going to hurt us. In other words, I'm not blaming her for it, but nobody thought this was going to happen. But on January, it's such an important question to me because they think that months earlier we were told about this and we should have done something about it.
No one said months earlier.
China didn't even know for a period of time. It got out. China should have stopped it. But China, they didn't know, and they wouldn't let us in. We wanted to go into China. They didn't want us to go in.
That's true.
They didn't want to have us see it. Maybe they were worried about competence. Maybe they were worried about something else. But the question is good, and here's the final answer.
I wonder why he praised China so
intelligence
voraciously.
agencies told me on the 23rd, shortly thereafter, I closed down the country. But I didn't do it because of what they said, because they said it very matter-of-factly. It was not a big deal. And the intelligence agencies, which are now, because before they weren't, which are now very competently run with some great people and some great people coming, the intelligence agencies will tell you that tomorrow.
So when you did stop travel in from China, about 40,000 people came back to this country.
Yeah, they were American citizens.
But you said they were tested? Who tested them and where?
They were tested. Well,
they weren't
different
tested?
States. They were tested. They were quarantined when they were sick, and they came back. I spoke with Ron DeSantis 2 days ago. He called me. He said,
most of them were not tested. They were screened. If they had a fever, something might happen. But states, all 50 states had to be individual responsible for this. And he only stopped travel from China if you're not a U.S. citizen and if you were not involved in trade and only by plane. So essentially, 40,000 people came in, including a lot of non-Americans, and very few people were actually quarantined.
You know, the 40,000 people that came back, the ones that went to Florida, he said, we put them through the grill. We had people quarantined. We had people tested. You could ask.
And DeSantis lied about that. They didn't quarantine people from China. What they did was started quarantining people from New York and New Jersey later. That's the quarantine that he was talking about. But Trump misunderstands everything.
That's the governor. There's one example, but other governors did the same thing if they were doing their job. But I had to let them come back. I actually said maybe we could keep them there for a while. These are American citizens. I had to let them come back, Martha. So you had 40,000 people. Now, when the Democrats said it,
you let them come back and you quarantine them.
Let 40,000. They don't say they were American citizens. I did the right thing. But when they came back, they were tested. Some were tested probably not as good as they could have been. I can tell you, Florida tested the people very, very well. And look how low the numbers are in Florida. They've done a great job.
If you look back to January 31st, the travel ban didn't happen until February 2nd at 5 p.m. You can look that up on the White House website. Between January 31st when he announced it and February 2nd at 5 p.m., there was a rush of people because they found out, we're not going to be able to get into the States. Well, we better get on a plane. Same thing happened with Europe. They said it's going to be, if this is Wednesday night, it's going to happen Friday at midnight. And so a rush of people, including some people that I know, got on planes and came back from Europe. It's all nonsense.
When we come back, thank you, Mr. President, more of your questions, specifically from small business owners, many of whom
we don't have to wait. Give me a second, folks.
It was your choice.
Look at that.
To business customers.
On the wall behind me is Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural
No commercials
address.
for us.
And a quote, "With malice toward none, with charity for all, let us bind up the nation's wounds." Words, meant to heal.
I don't know if you can see in the chat window. Over there. It's over there. Stephen F. Boyce just said, "This is a corrupt broadcast." Technically, I am getting paid for this because I've got a lot of sponsors. So, folks, if you'd like to help sponsor and make this a more corrupt broadcast, then please do. And I'm going to give you an opportunity here in a second, Stephen. Go to kevinleefather.com and that takes you to the Patreon page. And then you can choose your level of support and give me $1, give me $20 a month, give me $50, give me $1,000 a month. Whatever you can afford helps me do this. Now, Stephen, I want to be fair to you as well. Anybody donates $100,000 a month to me, and I will stop the broadcast. So if you don't like what I'm saying, put your money where your mouth is, because remember, this country is so much better off than it was when we had Obama in. So you're probably filthy rich by this point. So, hey, for $100,000, I will stop this broadcast. Just let me know. Moving on.
A nation devastated by civil war. We obviously live in a divided time as well. You know that well. Your choice even of this hallowed place for this virtual town hall is creating controversy, criticism. What do you say to people who say this is not the right venue for this?
Who's saying that?
I didn't know that it was creating criticism, and
No,
I did say
nobody
this
knew
would be
that.
nice, but I thought it was your choice, not ours.
Yeah.
And I had not heard. What can you criticize? I don't think it's ever been done.
Stephen F. Boyce just said, "You're probably broke," and all in caps, so more like "You're probably broke." Stephen, it's Y-O-U apostrophe. That's one of those sky commas. R-E. There you go, Stephen. Okay, so you know. Better. And you're not yelling this time. So good. You're calming down. Take a moment, gather your bank account information, and become a sponsor at kevinleefather.com.
Done what we're doing tonight here. And I think it's great for the American people to see this is a great work of art. Aside from the fact that was a great man, this is a great work of art. It's one of the greatest sculptures, one of the greatest statues, to me, anywhere in the world. And you can go to Italy, you can go anywhere. That's, to me, one of the greats. And I didn't know there was
We're
controversy.
not allowed to go to
Why
Italy
is there
right now.
controversy?
Some from Capitol Hill sent a letter that it's not the right place, not the right site. But as far as bringing America together, do you think you're doing that?
I think we're winning very big, and then we had a horrible thing happen.
We're winning very
bigger
big.
than we've ever won before, Brett.
What were we
And
winning?
I think that winning ultimately is going to bring this country together. I'm shocked that during a crisis it would be so partisan. You know, when you see all these committees, 7 or 8 committees we haven't even started, and they have all these committees looking for trouble, just looking for trouble. Every enemy I have is put on a Democrat committee. And I was surprised. You know, they did the impeachment hoax. It was a total hoax over a phone call.
I'm
It was a
green screen,
perfect
Larry.
call. And we had
no, they're actually at the
when you look
Lincoln
at the House,
Memorial.
I think it was 196-0, the Republicans. There was great unity in the Senate, the same thing. With all of that unity we have, in one sense, we have great unity. In another sense,
we are winning at something. I'm going to show you
I think they're going
guys.
to come along. I mean, I certainly hope so. But
there we go.
The main thing I have to do is bring our country back, and I want to get it back.
28% of the world's death and only 4.4% of the world's population. That's American exceptionalism. Winning, people.
To where it was, or maybe beyond where it was. We have tremendous stimulus, all the money we've been talking about so far tonight. I think next year is going to be a phenomenal economic year. We can never forget all the people that have died, the souls that have been lost in this horrible thing that shouldn't have happened. Just shouldn't have happened. It's
Well,
such a horrible
nature.
thing. And there's a lot going on about finding out the answer to that, because this is something that should never have happened. It's tragic.
We want to talk to you a little bit more about China in just a moment. But you mentioned winning, and there's a race to win on the vaccine between countries in the world. So pushing this vaccine development in order to get it to go faster leads to human trials, people volunteering to basically be injected with COVID-19.
Right.
Are you concerned about the ethics or the risk of that in that push?
No, because they're volunteers. They know what they're getting into. They're, in many cases, very good people. They want to help the process. Look, a vaccine has never gone like it's gone now. We're so far ahead of any vaccine ever in history. These things would take 2, 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years. I think we're going to have a vaccine. I'm telling you, by the end of the year, I think we're going to have a vaccine.
You think another country could beat us?
I'm going to really say something that is not
it's fine
like
if
me,
they
and
do.
it's
We'll
not
buy
like
it.
the two of you. I know you, and it's not like you. I don't care. I just want to get a vaccine that works. I really don't care. If it's another country, I'll take my hat off to them. We have to come up with a vaccine. We're working with other countries. We're working with Australia. We're working with UK.
All right.
I spoke with the other day your Prime Minister of UK.
We're going to fix this in real time.
Boris. He's a victim of what happened. He thought it was over. He thought it was over. It was vicious. And he made it. He's a great guy, and he made it. But he had firsthand experience, the ultimate firsthand experience.
Mr. President, our next questioner is Dina Rubio. She's the co-manager of a restaurant down in West Palm Beach, Florida, you know well. Here's her question.
We're facing the shortage of supplies due to the closure of chicken, pork, and beef plants. Prices are going up, and the restaurant industry is finding even more obstacles to stay afloat. My question is, how can we manage to keep working with very slim profit margins to begin with and absorb the shortage price increase at this point? And even when we do open our dining rooms, we will be having limited seating available.
Right. So the restaurant business is a tough business to start off with, not an easy business. We're doing a number of things. Number one, the supply chain is going to be in great shape. I did the Defense Production Act. We did things. The problem with the supply chain is you have people that have gotten sick with the COVID-19. You've had the people, and they've gotten sick. They're getting better, and they're all getting better, and you can't make them work. I don't want them to work, frankly, if they're not feeling great. But we did something the other day, which you read about, which was a great shock to the system in a positive way. We have tremendous...
Who said I don't make mistakes? I make mistakes constantly. Just the other day I made a mistake. God damn it. See?
We have tremendous supply. We have tremendous demand. We have to get it from supply to the people, to the restaurants. And we're doing that really very well. 2 days ago, I signed this. It's coming along really good. They'll have, now the bigger problem is what's going to happen with the restaurant. So we're not going to have any chain problem. The bigger problem is what are you going to do with a restaurant, which was, a nice little business, but all of a sudden they have half the number of seats if they go. Eventually, we're going to have all those seats back. You're going to have all those seats. I want to sit next to people. I don't want to have all this spread out, like even the way we're doing. We're doing this interview tonight. Look how far away you are. Look how far away you are. Normally we'd be sitting together and would have a nice interview. Of course, in this particular location, this isn't so bad. But no, we have to get our life back. We have to get our country back. We have to get the world back. We want to have, if we have a
Stephen, why are you shouting?
In Alabama that holds 110,000 people against LSU, I went there. We want to have 110,000. We don't want to have 25,000 people or 40,000 people, and that'll happen. Maybe it's going to be a vaccine, or maybe it's going to be that this virus will pass. It will go. Will it come back? It might. It could. Some people say yes, but it will pass.
I want to go back to the meat processing plants because there's some controversy surrounding that. Danny Lemos, who you saw before, who had the remdesivir, said it helped him survive. His father worked in one of those
now
in
I've forgotten
Nebraska
what
in the
the
meat
word actually
plants.
is. Remdesivir.
And some people there say that they have plastic between them, but they're too close together. A lot of immigrants working there who are concerned, but they can't turn down a paycheck to go back there. So they're, the Smithfield plant in Crete wanted to shut down for 2 weeks. And then the executive order changed that. So there's some pushback on that decision by you. What do you say to those people?
Well, the companies really wanted it. The employees have to want to work. Now, if they don't want to work, that's one thing, but they are working and they need the money. And the companies are they're great companies. These have been,
I don't know when sports are going to be back.
These are the biggest companies in the world in terms of delivery and in terms of all of the things they do to get it from literally the ranch or the farm into the hands of the consuming public. But I think it's all working out. The numbers are heading in the right direction. The numbers, look, the biggest thing we can do to solve every problem is get rid of the plague. I call it the plague. If we get rid of the plague, all these problems go away very quickly.
But some of those meat processing areas are hot spots right now.
He's a genius.
Hot spots.
If we get rid of the plague, all of these problems go away. There it is, folks. Why didn't somebody else think of that?
And they're moving them, and they did put up plastic, but now they're going to move them in some cases further away. And certain plants don't have any problem at all. You have plants with no problem at all. Then you have some where it was a hot spot. Those people are tending to get better very quickly. I think, Danny's an example. I hope his father's going to be okay, too.
I don't know what we're yelling about.
But it's all working out. It's all working out. It's horrible that we have to go through it, but it's all working out.
Our next question is
it's all working out,
Carol
except for those
McNeil,
68,000 dead.
In South Carolina.
A family member who lives in a very exclusive and expensive assisted living center in the Boston area was recently diagnosed with coronavirus.
Oh.
What will be done both in the short term and in the long term to protect the vulnerable in nursing homes, senior housing, and assisted living centers?
So the nursing home problem, that's your ground zero. It really is ground zero. We first heard about it, I did, in Washington when so many people were, in the state of Washington, where so many people died in a single nursing home. And you realized immediately there's a vulnerability there. What we're doing is legislation immediately as to how many people can be in. Some people made some terrible mistakes. They were putting other people into empty areas in nursing homes that were sick. And that affected the people in the nursing homes. Because the one thing about this disease that everybody's learned very easily and very quickly is the way it's so contagious. It is the most contagious thing people have seen.
No,
so
not
in
even close,
1917, we had a horrible.
1918.
In that case, it was a flu, right? You remember the Spanish flu.
Started in 1918.
So much has been written about it. Now, of course, it's the hottest. Everybody that writes a book about the Spanish flu, 1917, it killed between 100.
It's the hottest.
And I guess 50 to 100
because of the fever?
Million people. It probably ended the First World War because the soldiers were all getting sick. It was the worst the world has ever seen that we know of.
First World War kept going anyway.
We have something that's different. It's not as powerful, but it's far more contagious.
By the way, it did end the Stanley Cup. Yeah, the Seattle Metropolitans were playing Montreal, and they had to cancel the series because several of the players got sick, and 4 days later, one of the Montreal players died. So, yeah, it did cancel sports. So, in this case, we have to play without a little or go without a little hockey for a while. I'm going to survive. I just want the players to survive. But, yeah, I've said this for a long time. Once we get, say, 20 to 25 athletes of any sport to test positive and then recover from it, which we're probably about there now, just have them play each other. Like, give them some sort of ball and a couple of nets. Have them play hockey, broom ball, soccer against each other, just so we have something to watch.
Contagious.
With regard to the nursing homes, one of the questions that came to my mind when I watched the Comfort leaving Manhattan and the Javits Center, why were these people next to each other like this in nursing homes when we had all this excess capacity and beds? Why weren't they sent there?
So on that one, you have to ask the governor, and in the case, the governors, because all I can do is provide the space. They're running their state, as you understand, and that's the way it should be. They run their state through mayors and through this and that, bring it down local or bring it down to a point. But we provided 2,900 beds in the convention center. On top of that, we brought in the Comfort. They did a phenomenal job. And the Comfort wasn't meant for the COVID-19. The Comfort was meant for people that had car accidents and everything else. So we found out there were no accidents because nobody was driving. We had very few accidents.
It's actually true.
It wasn't meant for that. What we did is we converted it to that, but still they didn't use it much. And I think the numbers now are getting better. We just moved the Comfort. We're going to move it someplace else, probably perhaps for some other kind of problem. But we had the Comfort there, and we built in the Javits Center, we built over 2,000 beds. And by the way, built in like 5 days by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers have done one of the greatest jobs anyone's ever seen, including the fact that we happen to be building a wall on the southern border that's now up to 172 miles.
Quickly, how concerned are you about hospitals that are not dealing with COVID-19 or primarily not, and they're letting people go or closing?
We have to get elective surgery, it's called, and we have to let them come back. It's okay with us. Again, that's up to the governors. You have some hospitals where they have almost no COVID, and they have the hospital, essentially, you can't go and do elective surgery, meaning a surgery, well, in some cases it's cancer, where they're waiting long. That's not a good thing to be waiting long. So
Are they canceling cancer
surgeries? They have to get
surgeries?
back. They have to let these hospitals, because the hospitals are legitimately, you think they're making a lot of money, they're losing a fortune.
Is cancer surgery elective? Is there somebody out there who knows that? I mean, I guess certain types of cancer? Yeah, there are. Okay, I've just been told that, yeah, some cancer surgeries are elective. If I got any kind of cancer, go ahead and get it out.
They have to let those hospitals reopen and get back to elective surgery. And there are many hospitals right now that could be doing that. That's up to the governors. That's not up to me.
Well, when we come back, thank you, Mr. President. More of your questions for the president. Plus,
we don't
will be
have
joined
to
by
wait.
Vice President Mike
Hold on.
Pence.
Mike Pence? Yeah,
And
we'll
we
wait
wanna-
for that. Give me a second. I'll find it.
Lockdown to
Oh,
a
there's
graduate.
Fauci. Let's go back a second here.
Thanks to her citizens, Americans struggling to survive
There
in
we
the
go.
midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Have a nice day. Enjoy. I think it's really important that the American people know the federal government is collecting data every day and doing everything they can to respond to this epidemic.
Businesses trying to strike a delicate balance between our nation's health and its economic well-being.
We've really got to be careful as we go from a lockdown to a gradual rolling re-entry into some sort of normality.
So far, it's been up to the governors in all 50 states, whose decisions have sparked frustration on both sides.
We want to reopen, but we want to do it without infecting more people or overwhelming
Who's
the
that guy?
hospital
He's
system.
smart.
When you close somebody's business down and take the livelihood of that individual and those employees, and they are literally at the face of losing everything, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Tonight,
That's what the
President Trump
PPP and
continues to
unemployment are
present
for.
his plan
But,
to put the
okay.
nation back to work.
There is more help coming. There has to be. And we want to get it to a point when we open, we're not going to lose businesses, and therefore, more importantly, frankly,
sorry,
we're not going
Emma.
to lose the jobs.
Is your mom okay? I can't watch all the chat. I'm watching the show, but did your mom make it, Emma?
Welcome to Hour 2 of our Fox News virtual town hall with President Trump live in the heart of our nation's capital at the Lincoln
Because the
Memorial.
president's not smart.
Over
Here's the
past
thing about the
week,
1917
we have
flu.
received
The 1917 flu didn't happen. I mean, there was a flu in 1917, but it wasn't the Spanish flu that decimated much of the world's population. But here's the thing about that. The important thing to remember is not only does the president get it wrong every single time he says 1917 instead of 1918, 1919 when it happened, but there's nobody in his sphere of influence who either has the guts or the wherewithal to just let him know, hey, actually it was 1918. You can't correct the president because he will go nuts and he will fire you. And then, like, for example, I seriously believe that Dr. Scarf that we just saw, whom we just saw, anyway, she has to keep singing his praises, because if she doesn't, she's going to be just like Dr. Messonnier, and she's going to be gone. Do you guys remember her? She was the one who was standing behind the Trump for the first couple of coronavirus press conferences, and he got rid of her. Hold on, I will show you. Right here, when he said close to zero. This is Dr. Messonnier standing behind him.
When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, that's a pretty good job we've done.
Okay, so the next day, Messonnier went on the radio and said, yeah, we're going to have a pandemic. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I called my kids' school today and asked them, what are your plans for when school closes? Now, Trump hated that because at the time he was saying, oh, it's going to be close to zero within a couple of days. We got 15. It's going to be close to zero. So we haven't seen her since. And that's what will happen to Dr. Scarf if she speaks out and doesn't say things like, the president really pays attention to the data. That's her way of trying to get the president to feel good about paying attention to data, which, you know, they came up with the plan to reopen America. And then that was just thrown out the window because, you know, why bother with safety? Okay, anyway.
1,000 video questions from all of you, the American people, the questions about your businesses, your jobs, what the future holds in the wake of this pandemic. And we're bringing those questions directly to the president tonight.
Many of your questions have been focused on the delicate balancing act of getting back to normal life and maintaining health and safety.
I'm sorry to hear that, Lizzie.
The state of Georgia has served as a litmus test for that balancing act, reopening for business over a week ago, despite heavy criticism.
While we're on the subject of the PPP, I want to show you why there's very little PPP money left. This is the first round. A Trump donor who gave the president a bunch of money for the election and also for the inauguration, his hotel company ended up with $96.1 million. It's a hotel company because of the way the law was written. Remember, there was a holdup and everybody was saying, oh, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer doesn't want the PPP. They want to hurt the American workers. No, they were trying to get legislation written in there so that large companies like this hotel chain and Ruth Chris and Shake Shack, etc., you've heard of these companies, some sandwich shop too, they got a bunch of money, even though they have thousands of employees, because the Republicans wrote the law so that it said 50 employees per location. And as long as you had any locations, like this hotel chain, which had some hotels with less than 50 employees, you could get the money. So, yeah, that darn Nancy Pelosi. Let's get going.
Fox News correspondent Steve Harrigan has more from Georgia tonight.
The coronavirus crisis is not uniting Georgians. Governor Brian Kemp's aggressive reopening has sparked two different groups of protesters. Those who call it homicidal.
I'm going to interrupt this just for a second. Steven, you just asked, are there any other links to watch this without this jerk? Yeah, you can just turn on Fox. I mean, this is the Fox feed right here. This is public commentary, so I'm able to use that feed. That's called fair use. Anyway, without getting too specific, I really would like you to stick around, though, because when you watch, it helps my numbers and generates revenue for me, and then other people see you watching, and then I get highlighted. And when you comment, that also helps. So please, keep watching. I really appreciate you, my friend.
Negligence, and those who demand the right to work and survive economically.
The government allowed us to open up. I feel that some people thought we were being ordered to open, which was not the case.
It's not how you use a mask.
Nobody's making a client come in and take any extra risk, and nobody's ordering any business to open.
There are more than 36 safety restrictions for restaurants, including screening
God, I want a
employees
burger.
for fever, wearing masks, and limiting the number of customers inside. But many still feel safer with takeout.
It's safer for me, so that if I did the dining, I'd go home and start wondering, okay, who else is in there?
I know people want to get back to work. I know they want to make money, but I just think it's just too soon.
For businesses that depend on crowds like movie theaters, the long-term threat to their existence is real. Some are trying to change before that happens.
The biggest challenges are figuring out how to keep paying my folks, but keep them safe too, and reinvent an 81-year-old business model.
Atlanta's Plaza Theater opened before World War II and reopens this week outside in a parking lot, going back to their drive-in past to survive in today's climate.
That is so cool.
They think it's appropriate that the first movie they show will be Back to the Future. Brett?
Lizzie, how far are you into Oregon? Because I'll drive.
Thank you, Steve. Let's get right to our virtual town hall
Kids, we're taking a road
for
trip.
President Trump.
Oh,
Again.
Kevin, my
Our next
daughter's a
question from the
vegan,
president
so
comes from Clearwater, Florida. Here it is.
Thank you for taking our question, Mr. President. I'm Mary Rose.
And I'm Mark, and we own Rosemark Grips. We're a small business in Florida that makes golf putter grips.
Cool.
We do not qualify for the payroll protection program because we do all the work ourselves. We don't have any payroll employees.
Right.
We're wondering if there's something in the works that will help us out as we have numerous bills that still need to be paid and do not qualify for current programs that are out there.
They get $600 a week. That's
well, first of all, I love your business, and both I can speak for Brett. We could both use a nice putter grip, and it would be nice. But I don't know about you, Brett. I haven't played golf in a long time.
Played much.
We haven't played too much lately. But I will say this: what we have to do is get it open. I see New Jersey's opening up their golf courses. Florida's now opening up their golf courses. Parks are opening. Beaches are opening. At some point, we have to open our country, and people are going to be safe.
Most golf courses in most states didn't
close. We've learned about the tremendous contagion, but we have
Washington's
no choice.
opening up its golf
We
courses.
can't stay closed as a country. We're not going to have a country left.
But Mark and Mary Rose are saying they
We'll
fell
still have
through
a
the
country.
cracks. We got a lot of questions like this, that either the bank didn't give it to them or they didn't qualify. And what do you tell them?
I understand. And all we can do in that case is we have to bring back
Seattle.
the business. Now, all of that's opening, and their business is golf, which is a nice business. And we're opening up that whole golf sector, the sports sector.
On the plus side, gas is cheap, Lizzie.
I wish I could help them. I'd even help them personally, because you know what? It's not a big business, but for them, it's a big thing, and they probably do a fantastic job. I could see they have such great spirit. What we do is we loan the money to small businesses, but not necessarily business. It's an unusual circumstance where they're each their own employee. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at that. Maybe there is something we can do.
Because all the stimulus in the world really can't solve the problem of demand in the country, right? How do you stimulate demand?
The greatest thing we could do is get rid of the virus, because then everything comes back together. You don't need stimulus once that's happening. And what is happening is the stimulus. We're talking about $3 trillion, not just $2 trillion, $3 trillion. It could even go to $6 trillion. And we're going to have a tremendous year next year because of what we're doing and laying the seeds. We're talking 30 million jobs that we've saved. 30 million jobs, that's unheard of. In addition, we saved the airlines, we saved others. One thing happened on Friday that was very big. Boeing, a great company, then they had the problem that people know, a different problem, and then they end up with this, where their sales are cut so badly because of this, which is, by the way, also happening in Europe, as you know, with their competitor, no airplanes. They floated a bond issue, borrowed money, very, very successfully at a good rate on Friday. That's a big step. The markets are there. The markets are open. I believe it was $30 billion. So the markets are there. That's a big step. We didn't have to do anything with Boeing. They went out to the markets, and they were able to borrow a lot of money, and it's going to be a great company again. But we've done that with the airlines. The airlines, Brett, were having the best year they've ever had, ever in their history. And then we had to turn off the airlines. We had to turn off everything. And
we didn't turn off the airlines. People just stopped taking the airlines.
We never want to have to do it again.
Let's go to Carolyn Perkins. She's a retired nurse and an elementary school guidance counselor. And here's her question.
Okay.
By the way, kids, let me just talk about the airlines for a second. During the recession, the airlines lost a bunch of money. Let's just say $30 billion. No one really knows exactly how many dollars the airlines lost worldwide. So then starting in 2010, they started making money again. And since 2010, they've taken $250 billion in profit. $250 billion. And knowing that at any time they could see some bad days again, they didn't put any of that money into their squirrel fund. And so now we're giving the airlines, just the United States, $86 billion because they didn't save any money. Why? Because they give all of that profit to shareholders. So when the shareholders need some help, United States taxpayers going to step up and give them that money back and keep those airlines afloat. Well, not afloat, I guess, aloft. So it's like Trump with my metaphors. So they have to have some sort of responsibility. The cruise ship industry has to have some sort of responsibility. Because, I mean, God knows, can you imagine if there were no cruise ships? Back at it.
President Trump, my husband and I thank you, your family, and your staff for your great dedication.
Oh, here's the point I wanted to make there. The airline industries get $86 billion. The entrepreneurs, the small business people, like the people that make those golf club grips, they get nothing. So, hey, thanks for paying your taxes all these years, kids.
Dedication to our country. We pray for you every day. The question I have is about your manner of presentation. Why do you use descriptive words that could be classified as bullying, and why do you not directly answer the question?
Nick, there is no travel ban. That doesn't shut down the airlines. You can still travel on the airlines.
Asked by the press, but instead speak of past successes and generally ramble.
Oh, if you don't believe me, just get on Expedia right now. Try and book a trip. It's really cheap, by the way. I recommend traveling anywhere domestically. I can fly to Fort Lauderdale for $13 right now.
USA needs you. Please let go of those behaviors that are turning people away from you. Please hold on to your wonderful attributes that make you our great leader, and let go of other characteristics that do not serve you.
Good. I think I like that question. I'm not sure, but I think I like that question. I appreciate it. I appreciate the prayers, too, very much.
She's all be best.
I am greeted with a hostile press, the likes of which no president has ever seen. The closest would be that gentleman right up there. They always said Lincoln. Nobody got treated worse than Lincoln. I believe I am treated worse. You're there. You see those press conferences. They come at me with questions that are disgraceful, to be honest, disgraceful. Their manner of presentation and their words. And I feel that if I was kind to them, I'd be walked off the stage. I mean, they come at you with the most horrible, horrendous, biased questions. And you see it, 94 or 95% of the press is hostile. And yet, if you look in Florida today, we had hundreds and hundreds of boats going up and down the Intercoastal, Trump. We have tremendous support. But the media they might as well be in the Democrat Party. And why,
Democratic.
I don't know. We fixed our military. We fixed the vet. You know, if you look at the VA, you take a look at what's going on with our vets. They have choice now, and we have accountability. We're able to get rid of people that don't treat our vets well. They've been trying to do that for 44 years.
Well,
and because
choice was established in 2014. We didn't have a president in 2014.
We've done choice, where if a vet can't see a doctor quickly, they go outside, they get a doctor, they get fixed up, we pay the bill, instead of waiting for 5 weeks, 7 weeks. Look at how well these things are running. We rebuilt our military. We had the greatest tax cut, biggest tax cut in history. All of the things we've done. And yet we have a very
it wasn't even close.
Press. And you understand. Maybe you're not going to say it or admit it, and maybe you shouldn't. But nobody's ever seen anything like this. So I really appreciate the question, and I very much appreciate the sentiment behind the question. But I'm standing up there, and instead of asking me a normal question, the level of anger and hatred, I'll look at him, I'll say, what's your problem? What is your problem? You know, I believe we've done more.
I can show him my problem. I do it. There it is. There it is right there. There's the problem. I can also show him 68,000 people who have the same problem.
More than any president in the history of our country in the first 3 years, 3.5 years. I really believe that. When you
He's killed more Americans than any other president in the first 3 years of their administration. That is true.
Al-Baghdadi, we killed him. Soleimani, we killed him. We killed the worst terrorists in the world. We got
67,000 Americans.
We took over 100% of the caliphate. When I took it over, the caliphate was all over the place.
But do you think the election will come down to a
caliphate was all over the place?
How you handled this crisis?
No.
One
location.
location.
Bigger than that?
No. I think the election's going to come down to, I hope it does, because we've done a great job. We had no ventilators. We had no testing. We had nothing.
Okay, let's go back to ventilators for a second. For those of you just joining us, he always says that there were no ventilators available. There were ventilators available. There were 13,000 ventilators available. Here's Seema Verma. She works for Trump. Here's the person who knows if there were ventilators available.
So one of the things that we have to prepare for situations like this is a stockpile. And there's over 12, almost 13,000 ventilators that we have, so that if communities, hospitals, other organizations, need to have these ventilators, we can ship that out to them. So
empty, no ammunition. Our military was bad.
We had ammunition.
Rebuilt our military. $1.5 trillion. We have the best military by far in the world. It's rebuilt. It's either all new or the equipment's coming in, which is great. But you know what? Also medically, we had empty cupboards. The cupboards,
there it is, empty cupboards.
Were empty. We have an incredible testing. We have the best testing system right now in the world. We also make all the ventilators.
One of the things about the cupboards being empty is we had a lot of ventilators. Many of those ventilators, fact check me on this. By the way, don't believe me on any of this stuff, guys. Fact check it for yourself, because I could be lying to you. I mean, I know I show you evidence, etc. But I could manufacture a picture. Research this stuff for yourself. But one of the things was there were, I want to say 1,200, 1,300, 2,700, doesn't matter. There were a lot of ventilators that have to be upkept as time goes on because they're just sitting in stockpiles. Well, Trump's administration let the contract to maintain the ventilators expire, and so they no longer worked. Actually, they sent some of them to California, the non-working ones, the non-functional ones. California sent them out to get fixed. Got them back a couple of days later. But yeah, that's on Trump. We had a whole thousands and thousands of ventilators that didn't work because that guy let the contract run out. Didn't want to pay. Which is so unlike Trump.
Spent the weekend at Camp David speaking to, and a prior couple of days, speaking to heads of other countries that are desperate for ventilators. And we now have so many ventilators. You know, a month ago, that's all they were talking about was ventilators. The team of people that did this
also
job
talking about
was
tests.
incredible. It was probably the biggest mobilization since World War II.
Mr. President, the governors credit you for the ventilators across the board. You mentioned the Democrats and leaving the cupboards bare from the previous administration. You're not surprised to hear that the former Vice President Joe Biden pushes back against that. He tweeted just the other day, we left a playbook. He ignored it. We created an office to prepare for pandemics. He gutted it. We had CDC officials in China to detect and contain the outbreaks. He pulled them out.
Also
Trump can try and shift blame all he wants, but the fact is his actions left us unprepared.
First of all, Joe Biden didn't like
accurate.
that. That was written from a young man that got very good grades at a very good school. That was not written by him.
Okay, but still true.
I promise you that. Joe Biden, just so you know, when I closed our borders to China, I did the China ban. I didn't want to do that. I did something that nobody wanted to do. Joe Biden said he's xenophobic.
No,
he's
he
a
didn't
racist.
say that.
They called me a racist. And I saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And he actually apologized with a letter on a Friday night saying he made the right move. It wasn't well played by the press, but he said, I made the right move.
I want to clarify this. He did not say that closing the border with China, which never happened, was xenophobic, because that's how Trump pronounces it, and I'll show you that in a second. He didn't say that. He said that we need to make decisions based on science, not on xenophobia and racism, etc. That's what he said. He didn't say that the decision was xenophobic. Now, the couple of times that Trump has talked about this, he said, Biden probably doesn't even know what xenophobic means. And here's why, because he didn't know what xenophobic meant. This is from 2016. I think I've got this here. In fact, I'm sure I've got this here. Here it is right here. This is Trump in 2016 responding to Hillary's speech where she talked about the basket of deplorables. She also called Trump xenophobic. And when he read that on the teleprompter, he thought people were scared of a 1980s malt beverage.
She called these Americans every name in the book: racist, sexist, xenophobic, Islamophobic.
Xenophobic. Because, you know, the 80s were a scary time.
Would have listened to Joe Biden. Look how badly they did on swine flu, the H1N1, which he calls the opposite. H1, it's H1N1, swine flu. Look how badly they did on that. Look how badly they've done on so many other things. I mean, the place
killed 12,000
our
people.
Military was a mess.
We're looking at 68,000 now for this.
Look at what they did in the Middle East. What's gone on in the Middle East. And in all fairness on the Middle East, I look at the previous administration for getting us in, because that was the single worst decision made in this country's history. The single worst, getting into the Middle East. Just so you understand, we've spent $8 trillion in the Middle East. What do we have for it? What do we have for it? And things are moving very nicely in the other direction.
Our next question for the president comes from Rob in Ohio.
Hello, I'm Rob from Columbus, Ohio.
Hey, Rob.
The coronavirus is disproportionately affecting communities of color.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what your administration will do to address this.
So we are working on that very hard, and you're right, 100% that
is he going to talk about black unemployment?
American, by the way, Asian American also and Hispanic American, they're very much more affected. People are not 100% sure. It could be because it's a certain segment that does work together, restaurants and different jobs which are affected.
Stephen, they didn't revise the number. What they did is they said patients who died with only COVID-19, that number's in the 37,000 range. But those numbers will be added on to as more tests come in, et cetera, because they don't determine how somebody died within 24 hours. Anyway, so they sectioned it out. They said 37,000 have died with COVID only, plus another X number have died with COVID and pneumonia, which COVID starts, plus another X number have died with COVID and blah, 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 blah. So if you take the patients who have died because they had COVID combined with anything or just COVID by itself, you're talking about 68,000 plus in the United States, which even if, let's just say it's 37,000. Remember the math we did on Korea? South Korea has 250. Multiple that by 6.6, it's just over 1,600. So even if we go with your completely erroneous numbers, let's just say that the world has no comprehensive ability, and we're going with the 37,000 number. 37,000, okay? 1,600. That's leadership.
A lot, but we're coming out with a report in 2 weeks on it, and I want to get to the bottom of it too, because it's a totally disproportional effect. It really is. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Next question is from Trip Grebe. He's a freshman at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And question for
Get this, guys. My friend Anthony, who plays hockey with me, lives in Los Angeles. He's a medical technician of some kind. He'd been exposed to COVID. He hadn't gotten tested for COVID because back when he was exposed twice, there were no tests available for him. So he had to go home and miss work for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. Now that that's all done, he wanted to get the antibody test. Now, the antibody test is going to allow us, theoretically, we don't know for sure, but to find out who can't contract the virus and die from the virus. Immunity is a different thing, but let's just say immunity, okay? So he wanted to get the antivirus test, which is different than the regular test. It's the newer test. It's the antivirus test, because he wanted to donate plasma. Because if he's got the antibodies in his body, that means that he can give his plasma to another human being who has been exposed to the virus or hasn't, and they can develop the antibodies too, which then fight the virus, and he could save lives. So being a great guy, as Anthony is, he went out and got the antibody test. Cost him $250 out of his own pocket. Not covered by insurance, not covered by the state, not covered by the federal government. We should be covering these tests, people. These save American lives. $96.1 million to a Trump donor with the hotels, but Anthony has to come up with $250 out of his own pocket. That's like 6 cups of coffee at Starbucks.
Mr. President, if you're elected to a second term, what's your plan to be more fiscally responsible to either reduce or eliminate the deficit in response to increased federal spending for the coronavirus stimulus packages?
Trump, fiscally responsible.
Billions of dollars coming in right now from other countries. We have money coming in.
No, we don't. We do not.
Paying now for
That's not how tariffs
protection.
work.
People are paying for other things. As you know, I'm putting taxes on other countries where they've taken advantage of us, especially, by the way,
he just
China.
called a tariff a tax.
China never gave 10 cents to our country.
That's not true.
They ripped off our country for many, and I've told this to President Xi directly, in a nice manner and in a not so nice manner. I get along with him. Should have done something different on this. But we made an incredible trade deal. We have tens of billions of dollars pouring in. President Obama
China does not pay the
Joe Biden
tariffs.
didn't do anything. China just had a field day with our country. And then you look at his son walking out with $1.5 billion. Give me a break on that.
Of investment.
I can go back to President Bush, and I can go back before President Bush, too.
Jerry does business in
China ripped this
China.
country off for many, many decades, and I stopped it. Then, of course, you had this horror show coming in, the plague. It came in. So now it's a different story, but we've taken in billions, and what have I done with it? I've given some of the money because they were targeted by China to the farmers and to the ranchers. $12 billion 2 years ago,
Made in China.
$16 billion last year, and we have a lot this year. And we, by the way, have many times those numbers left over from all the money we're making from China. That never happened before.
You have $25 trillion.
We're not making any money from
as
China
of today,
That's
and
right.
there's more on the burner that's possibly coming down the pipe. What's the number? That's
Well, we're
too
going
much
to cut.
when you
No,
get
we're going to cut back very substantially. Plus, we're going to have great growth. This country is going to grow like crazy as soon as we get it going, and we're going to start making our products here. Hey, Brett, you've known me for a long time. I've been talking about this for a long time. It's one of the reasons I would say border security, the military, and trade. These are the three primary reasons I got elected. This is a very big thing for me. I made a deal. Japan is now paying us $40 billion. They weren't paying us. They weren't doing anything. They were selling us.
Japan is not paying us $40 billion. They've agreed to buy $40 billion worth of products from us, which, I mean, Japan buys products from us. Everybody buys products from us. Now, what's made that very difficult right now is that we have a strong dollar. And when there's a strong dollar, other countries won't buy our goods as much because it's much more expensive for them. But he keeps bragging about the strong dollar.
They were selling us cars. We wouldn't do anything to tax them, but we couldn't sell cars in Japan. Japan, we did a deal for $40
Thanks for sticking around, Rich.
$40 billion a year. Look at South Korea. We redid the deal in South Korea. Mexico, Canada,
This is lasting
USMCA.
forever.
The NAFTA deal was so horrible. It was so horrible. But I said a word just now, NATO. My biggest fan in the whole world is the Secretary General of NATO.
Is an acronym a word? It is, isn't it? Does that count?
He said, nobody has ever done for NATO what I've done. We got $150 billion. The money that they're paying other countries, they weren't paying. We were paying for 100% of NATO. And now other countries are putting up. I went to them, I said,
we were not paying for 100% of NATO. That's complete nonsense.
Why would we be protecting all of these countries, 28 countries
He said before
total?
90, 95%. Now it's 100%. That's just a lie.
Martha, they're putting up $150 billion
I mean, you could look this up.
And it's going up to $400 billion. And no other president has ever done anything like that.
We have to take a break, but I just want to ask you quickly. There's a lot of people who say, why you talk about making
you
it
expect
here
a quick
in America.
answer?
Why are all of the antibiotics made in China? Can you give me a date
Capitalism.
by which we will be
That's
self-sufficient in antibiotics in this country? And what kind of incentive would you give manufacturers of pharmaceuticals to make sure that we are not dependent on China anymore for this?
So the reason it took place is because other people that sat in this chair.
No, capitalism is the reason.
This is a beautiful place. Because they were foolish. You could even say because they were stupid. Because they allowed this to happen. And it's not only China. You take a look at Ireland. They make our drugs. Everybody makes our drugs except us. And we've already done it. We're coming out with things, numbers. You're seeing numbers of innovations that we've made in the past. And things are being announced already. But we're bringing that whole supply chain back. Nobody has to tell me to do it. I've been talking about that for years. Now, the one that you see, you don't
You've
see,
been in
you see
office
it
for
with
3
cars,
years.
you see it
What
with
have you
other
been
things.
doing?
People never looked at medicine. But it's always been about medicine because we have at least 94, 95% of our medicines are made.
It's important to do the vaccine here.
Well, it's an incredible thing. They're American companies. Well, I'd like to be able to do it here. I don't want to do it in China. That I can tell you. But I think we're going to do it here. And if
God,
we do it
he's
someplace
sweating.
else, look.
I don't know if you
we
guys can
have
see
to
on
get
the
a vaccine.
broadcast.
Whoever gets it, I'm gonna be their best fan, and I need the vaccine.
Right now, he's the perfect environment for the virus.
And you're going to have it by the end of the year. I firmly believe it.
When will we get that 94% of antibiotics made in this country? Do you have a target date for that?
I think we will have it done within 2 years. You know, it doesn't go that quickly. And frankly,
look at this
you
guy.
put me in a very bad negotiating position by asking me this question. You know, we're talking about this. Now I'm supposed to call up my guys. I mean, you put me in a very bad negotiating position. And I'm not blaming you. That's your job. But you know,
so one of the things that we have
away because I don't want to be talking this way. I've done a lot, but it gets exposed when you answer. I assume the show is a big show, right? It's going to do very well tonight. But you do take away a lot of my cards when you're asking me a question like that. You understand that?
Yes.
Here's the bottom line. I met with the drug company 6 months ago. I said, you're going to start making the drugs here. You're going to start making them here. And they do it for two reasons. A cost reason, but it's no longer so much cost because we can do things here for the same price and in some cases less, and then you don't have the transportation problems. We're taking care of our, look, another reason I got elected.
Has he finished the
some people
sentence
don't
tonight?
like the sound of it, and other countries don't like it, but I said, I'm sorry. It's called America First. And we're all about America First. That's what we're about. These other people that sat in this position, they would subsidize other countries that don't even like us. This is all about America First.
Mr. President, thank you. When we return, Vice President Mike Pence and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin join the president here at the Lincoln Memorial to answer more of your questions on our virtual town hall. We'll be right back.
We don't have to watch this. We're going to skip ahead. Give me a second. And how about
Americans have lost their jobs?
Let's go back on her.
Patterson from Baltimore. She is the Director of Economic Inclusion at Johns Hopkins University.
President Trump, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of Americans have lost their jobs. How will you respond to the joblessness while also ensuring that our infrastructure is better than ever? Have you considered investing in infrastructure in our highways, our railways, our airports, and bridges as a way to create jobs for America?
Every week has been infrastructure
that's
week.
to you, but you can obviously phone a friend here if you'd like to.
And I'd love to have both speak about it, but infrastructure is very important. It's also important to the Democrats, by the way. That's something we actually do get along. I want to see a payroll tax cut on both sides, a very strong one, because that's going to really put people to work. But infrastructure is...
So the question is, what are you going to do for all the unemployed people? Well, we're going to give them a payroll tax cut, because that way their paychecks they're not getting are going to be so much better.
So important. Our country, our roads are, they're going to hell. We can't get infrastructure approved. Now we have a period of time when we can get infrastructure done by both parties, and we're looking at that. In addition, as you know, they want bailouts for the states, the Democrats, and really it's a number of states that frankly have not been managed well by Democrats over a long period of time.
Oh,
so we have to be very careful about that. Very careful.
These are the states that are underwater.
Infrastructure, and I told Steve just today, we're not doing
all of those red states, 40 states,
tax cut.
are underwater.
That is so important to the success.
Look at all those non-democratic
states.
states.
Because I think that the following year has a chance to be one of our best years. That'll be tremendous.
You all believe that is how you stimulate demand? Is that payroll tax cut? I mean, where do you look at that in the big picture?
Well, the president's been very clear on that, and he's spoken
about... Oh, shut up, Pence.
President, the heartbreak.
We're just going to skip over Pence because he's just going to say, dear leader, and then he's going to end up on his knees. Mnuchin, same thing. Mnuchin's going to lie to us. Let's go back to Trump here. Come on.
Invest in
there we go.
For my firm, the current tariffs add up to almost $60,000 in monthly additional costs for my operations. Lifting these tariffs would help us speed the recovery for many of us by allowing those funds to be used to hire workers, invest in equipment, and recoup some of the cash we've spent to weather the current economic situation. Would you consider permanently or even temporarily reducing or eliminating those tariffs?
So Phil, I love this guy. Different things, but you have to remember, I've taken those tariffs and given a lot of them to the farmers, and farmers that would have been really forced out of business by China when they were targeted.
Guy didn't look like a farmer.
Because China never had to target us, because China was ripping our country off. We were losing $500 billion a year to China for years, and
not true.
300 billion, 200 billion,
okay, 300, 200, but this is a trade debt. That's different than an actual debt.
A few years ago, and what I'm doing.
Here's the thing about a trade debt. Okay, it's not a debt. There's an imbalance in trade. But for example, with my little light switch that's made in China, I give China money, then I get this. So we're purchasing goods. We purchase more goods from China than they purchase to us. So there's an imbalance. But here's the thing. I now have this light switch. That's how trade works. And it's not such a bad thing.
And what I've done is taken a lot of money out of China, and I've given it back to Phil and other people, because I've given it back to not all of it, because we had so much money came in from China, but we gave, as I said, $12 billion 2 years ago, $16 billion, and this year we have.
I'm going to explain tariffs very quickly. So what a tariff does is it places an additional cost, let's say 10% on this. So this might cost $1. Now it's going to cost $1.10. But here's the thing: China doesn't pay that extra 10 cents. The people that bring it in, the company that sold me the light, that sold me this, they have to pay the import tax of 10 cents. That's what a tariff is. China doesn't pay that. The American company does. And now, instead of costing it $1, just $1, it now costs $1.10. An American paid that 10 cents. And if they don't pass it on to me, they're the one who pays. If the price of this goes up, then I'm paying that extra 10 cents. That's how tariffs work. China doesn't send this over with a dime taped to the back. That's not how tariffs work at all. They're a tax on Americans. In fact, this last tariff round is very quickly becoming the biggest tax raise on Americans of all time.
We have $19 billion that we're distributing to the farmers. Nobody's ever done that. No president's ever done that.
But Phil is obviously bringing in supplies from China that he's paying tariffs on. Would you encourage him to try to find other countries to buy those things from?
He is, but you know what they're also getting? They're getting big payments. The farmers are getting big payments.
He's not a farmer, and he's not getting payments.
Most incredible people. They don't even want the payments. You know what they say to me?
What about
something
Phil?
That almost no other group, and I can say practically no other group, they want a level playing field. We had a meeting with them, with Mike, and they came in and I said, we're going to give you
that
this.
Is correct,
Jay.
Jay.
Honestly, we don't want anything. We just want a level playing field. Because for 18 years, really, it's longer than that, they've been taken advantage of not only by China, by everybody, including Canada.
He does this all the time. For 18 years, really, it's longer than that. Why say 18? Why not say how long it's been? Since 1917, they've been taken advantage of by China.
Many, many countries that you wouldn't even think. So the farmers now, with the new USMCA and all of the other things, and as far as Phil, I understand it, but we're giving billions and billions of that money to the farmers.
Here we go.
And have a lot of money that goes back into the Treasury. Steve is the proud recipient from the standpoint of the Treasury.
But are you considering new tariffs on China as sort of a punishment for their handling of the virus?
Well, it's the ultimate punishment. I will tell you that. I don't.
You had experts look at.
I don't like to tell you what because we're all playing a very complicated.
So he's suggesting punishing China with tariffs, and as I just went over, who pays that extra dime? There, that. Who pays the extra dime on that? Me or the company that sells it to me takes the loss? Hoping, which a lot of companies have been doing, hoping that this all comes to an end at some point.
A game of chess or poker. Name whatever you want to name, but it's
checkers?
Not checkers, that I can tell you. We have a very complicated game going. Our country was being ripped off by every nation in the world. And now we have made unbelievable strides. Unfortunately, then we get hit by this whole situation. But we have done so well. We have taken in so much money. Going before the virus, China had the worst year they had in 67 years. That's the reason. And I'm not happy about that. But what it does is it says, they were taking us for a ride.
Right, but to Phil's point is that
we're now having the worst year we've had in 90 years.
He's saying Americans feel it. Experts said just your mention of that.
Don't go close up on Trump right now. He's way too sweaty.
Thursday and Friday. But I'm just wondering if you're really seriously thinking.
Look how orange he is compared to Pence.
Tariffs at a minimum are the greatest negotiating tool that we have ever devised that were never used for negotiation. President Xi only made the deal with us. They're going to buy $250 billion. Now, we're going to have to see what's going on because of what happened. This was done.
Yeah, he's playing checkers with 2 bottle caps and, for some reason, a shoelace named Cletus.
Months before the virus. But we're going to buy $250 billion worth of our product. $250 billion. They didn't buy 2 cents. They didn't want to buy from us. They took advantage of our country. Now they have to buy. And if they don't buy, we'll terminate the deal. Very simple. But by using the tariffs, that's the only reason. The one thing that he said, we must get rid of tariffs. I said, we're not going to get rid of tariffs. You got to treat our country with respect. You've been ripping off our country for many years. The World Trade Organization has ripped off this country. That's when China became an economic power. And
that's
by
not
the way,
how the WTO
you have World
works.
Trade and you have World Health. The World Health Organization has been a disaster. Everything they said was wrong, and they're China-centric.
Not true.
All they do is they.
Do you guys want to take a look at the World Health Organization? I have
some
stuff pulled up.
So our country, perhaps foolishly,
let me know if you do, and I'll do it.
Has been paying $450 million a year to the World Health Organization, and China has been paying $38 million a year. But they were more political than all of our leaders previous. So we'll see what I do with that. I'm going to have to make a decision on that. But we're not happy because what they did. What World Health did, they missed every single call.
There's a question to that.
They did not. I have the evidence if you guys want to see it. You do? Okay.
Right now?
Let's do it.
He's from Crawford, I think.
Okay, hold on, Crawford. We're going to get to you. Let's just take a look at the World Health Organization. Keep in mind that this is a novel virus, or a novel virus. That's very unlike the Nobel Prizes that Trump referred to it was just last week. That was last Sunday, wasn't it? Holy crap. So that was just last Sunday that he talked about the Nobel Prizes, which is only 3 years ago in human time. So this is a brand new virus. The World Health Organization warned about it way back. And then in January, a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, they said it wasn't transmitted person to person. Let's go back and see what they actually said, because they said many times, we're learning about this. We don't know for sure, which happens with a new virus, which is what novel means. Okay, let's take a look at what they did. Let's go in reverse order here. So, okay, now let's start with the 19th, which is which here? 14th. Okay. This is what they were saying on the 14th of January. And at this point, this is almost where the U.S. has its first case. But just staying on the 14th here, hello, responding to several doctors asking questions, or perhaps non-doctors, I don't even know. There has been no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus. Didn't have the name COVID-19 yet. However, such transmission is always a concern when patients have respiratory symptoms. This requires further investigation. They never said that it wasn't transmitted person to person. Let's move on. This is now the 16th. Not enough to know about the novel coronavirus to draw definitive conclusions about how it is transmitted, clinical features of disease, or the extent to which it has spread. The source also remains unknown. So basically they're saying there, we don't know yet. That's very different than saying it's not spread person to person. That's on the 16th. Let's jump ahead to the 19th. An animal source seems the most likely primary source of this novel coronavirus outbreak, with some limited human-to-human transmission occurring between close contacts. So by the 19th of January, they were already saying, yeah, there is some limited. We have seen evidence, even though China was not allowing them in until very late in January, that there was human-to-human transmission. Now, you'll see a quote that Republicans are putting out there over and over again that says that the World Health Organization, the WHO, was saying there was no person-to-person transmission. What the quote actually reads is there was no person-to-person transmission outside of China at the time of that quote. That's what it says, and it was accurate, that they knew of. But again, what the WHO has said several times is, we're not sure. They're not saying there wasn't person-to-person. Anyway, let's get back to the video. I've got it here somewhere. Moving on. So yeah, all this nonsense about the WHO is just that, nonsense.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't like evidence.
I have a question for you. Is there enough evidence that China misled global community about this coronavirus?
Yes, there is.
If it's so, how should global community respond?
Test everybody.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. We wanted to go in. They didn't want us to go in early, very early. You'll see that because things are coming out that are pretty compelling now.
I got to hand it to Stephen, though. He's passionate about this.
Don't forget, China tried to blame it first on some of our soldiers. That turned out to not go too far. And
he's just a troll.
Got very upset with that. That was
I hope he's making money.
I
hope he's getting paid by Russia right now.
I said, how did Europe get involved all of a sudden? You know, Italy suffered probably more than anybody per capita, but Italy, Spain, France now is on an additional lockdown. They've got tremendous problems. All of Europe, it's been a disaster. And, you know, when I put a ban on, those people went, for the most part, not here. And I'm not happy about this. It's terrible because it's life, whether it's here or
He's about
Europe.
to say something completely
stupid. We put a ban
stupid.
on very early on China coming in. They went to Europe. Most of those people went to Europe. That's why Italy was so badly affected. And you just see.
Okay. Italy put the ban on China on January 31st. Our ban didn't go into effect until February 2nd at 5 p.m. Nobody went from here to Italy because Italy put a complete ban on. And they said, hey, even our citizens that are coming back, only Italian citizens could come back, and they had to be quarantined no matter what. So it wasn't like people in China were saying, hey, let's go to Disneyland. Oh, Disneyland is closed. Okay, let's turn around and go to the Vatican instead. It just didn't happen. He's invented this, and there's absolutely no evidence. In fact, there's a mountain of evidence to the contrary. So
See what they're going through. China tried to blame Europe for this. No,
you told John Roberts the other day
China.
that you saw evidence that gave you a high confidence that the virus came from the Wuhan lab.
We're going to be
Not that it was created there, perhaps, but that it came from there.
At the right time,
Can you
we're going to
illuminate any more about that?
Yeah, we're going to be given a very strong report as to exactly what we think happened. And I think it'll...
We're going to release the information about the Wuhan virus in the lab. And at the same time, I've got some investigators who've been in Hawaii for 8 years, and they've got some really interesting findings about Obama's birth certificates.
Be very conclusive.
Is there any suggestion that it was anything nefarious or that it was just a mistake?
Yeah, this is Fox.
So I think they made a horrible mistake, and they didn't want to admit it. We wanted to go in. They didn't want us there. Even World Health wanted to go in. They were admitted, but much later, not immediately. And my opinion is they made a mistake. They tried to cover it. They tried to put it out. It's like a fire. It's really like trying to put out a fire. They couldn't put out the fire. What they really treated the world badly on, they stopped people going into China, but they didn't stop people going into the USA and all over the world. So you could fly out of Wuhan, where the primary problem was, all of the problem, essentially.
They also stopped flights to the rest of China.
And you could go to different parts of the world, but you couldn't go to Beijing, and you couldn't go to any place in China. So what's that all about? In other words, they knew they had a problem.
They shut down the airports in Wuhan. They couldn't fly from there to the United States.
And the case could be made. They said, hey, look, this is going to have a huge impact on China, and we might as well let the rest of the world, because the last people they want. We've had a great year against China prior to the virus coming. I told you, 67 or so years, the worst economy they've had. Worst
competition.
Almost on record that they've ever had because of my negotiations and because I taxed them on the product that they brought in. And by the way, they paid for that tax.
I want to address something here. I see Karen there has said the Chinese news channel was saying America spread the virus even before any country blamed China. No, that was actually after, and that rumor was started on One American News, saying that a lab in North Carolina. It was. You can look it up. Look up OAN. It's Chanel Rion did a report on it. Frank Lutz on Twitter. If you look up Frank Lutz on Twitter, he's got the original video broadcast on OAN where they blamed a military lab in North Carolina, I believe, for creating the virus. And so China picked up on that because, China, it's a communist state and they have propaganda. We don't have any propaganda. Speaking of not that, let's listen to Trump.
They paid for that tax. They devalued their currency. But here's the thing. They allowed this to go into our country. They allowed it to go into other countries.
Does it change how you feel about President Xi? Does it change your relationship with him?
Look,
no, it's all about relationships.
Deal that everybody said would be impossible to get. And not only a trade deal, it was a great deal for this country.
I'm not going to answer this
question.
But
that was done months before the virus came. I'm not going to say anything. I had a very good relationship. He's a strong man. He's a tough man. But I had a very good relationship with him. But this should never have happened. This should never have happened. This virus should not have spread all over the world. They should have put it out. They should have let us and other people in other countries go in and put it out because people knew it was happening.
We have another question about the situation getting people back to work in the U.S. Air travel, 95% down from a year ago, according to the TSA. Our next question coming from an aircraft technician in Texas.
Hi, I'm Joe from Arlington, Texas. I work for a major airline. How can we ensure the health safety of our passengers? And Mr. President, what advice would you give future presidents to prevent this from happening to our country again?
I love that second question. I just love it. But you probably,
China got
your airline was probably
everybody.
Saved by us because Steve and all of the people we have, we chose the smartest people on Wall Street to help us. Who else is better than these people? That's what they do. And by the way, they're working for a very tiny fee because I said, I don't want to pay them a lot of money for doing this. We're giving them money to save the airlines. I'm not looking to make them rich. They're rich enough. So I said, we're going to get the best people, pay them some cost, but pay them very little. I hope you kept doing that, Steve, right?
I did, Mr. President.
I hope. I'm going to check you.
$86 billion.
We have the smartest people. We save the airlines. We save the airlines with 50, 25, and $25 billion. So it's $50 billion, which is a very small price to pay. They were having the best year ever. As far as your
very small price, $50 billion?
We have to bring our product back home. We have to make our product in this country. We can't be hostage, because that's what we are, We can't be hostage to other countries, China in particular, but also to other countries. We can't ever let that happen again.
Mr. Vice President, there is that.
The question was about how do you ensure my job with the airlines? But yeah, we can't be held hostage by China. Karen, quickly here. Yeah, of course, the Chinese propaganda was complaining about their people not being let into all countries. They actually confined the virus quite quickly, locked cities down completely, not only Wuhan, but several cities in the area. So they did get some of the virus outside that, but the majority of China was not that affected by the virus. And I mean, that's a subjective use of the word affected, but they were very upset with everybody else because, again, it's Chinese media and they're controlled by the state and they want everything to be happy and rosy, and they would say things like, this has been a huge success. I saw one Chinese guy on TV say that. I think his name was Jared Kushner.
Balance. People are afraid to get on a plane if they can eventually. And balancing that fear of getting people back to work
I'm sorry,
or dealing
Emma.
with that fear.
Well, the president brought the airlines in very early on, and we want to commend all of our great airlines for continuing to operate.
And not saving any money for a situation like this.
Travel. But to your point, Brett,
China is to blame for a lot of this. Here's the deal. China's to blame for not sharing information about the virus right away. Then they did. But at that point, it was too late. The virus, being that it's a highly contagious virus, had already escaped. The question becomes then, what do you do when you get the virus? South Korea tested, free testing, and if you had it, I mean, they started the drive-through testing thing. That was South Korea. If you had it, please go home, isolate yourself, get your family out of there, or go to a hotel. We'll pay for it. And when you're out of work, we'll pay your bills. That's how South Korea controlled it. And today, they have 250 deaths. In fact, just a couple of days ago, they had their first day without a new case in the country. All of their cases, I think they had 2 or 4 cases for the day. They came in from outside the country. We have 68,000 dead. South Korea has 250 dead because they handled it properly. We did not handle it properly. We did not start administering tests. The tests weren't free. People in this country don't have health insurance, so they couldn't afford to go get a test, and the virus spread like wildfire. Well, Mr. Trump was walking around saying everything was going to be just fine. We don't have to worry about a virus. We're not going to have a pandemic. Everything is under control, and it's going to be just great. Here.
Some people did note that your tone seemed more somber yesterday. You talked about that August timeline. Did you see a projection? Some people thought perhaps that 2 million potentially that could die maybe prompted part of that. Was there a shift in tone?
I didn't think, I have seen that where people actually liked it, but I didn't feel different. I've always known this is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries. I think now it's in almost 120 countries all over the world. No, I've always viewed it as very serious. There was no difference yesterday from days before. I feel the tone is similar, but some people said it wasn't.
Have you been briefed by the CDC?
I have.
Are there words about a pandemic at this point?
No, we're not at all, and we have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
How concerned are you?
Well, we pretty much shut it down. Just take it nice and easy, okay? Just relax.
While you guys were watching that, I jumped ahead on Penn's questions here, so let's go back to that.
Have this economy beginning to move again, and with all the tremendous advances we're making in medicine and what we've learned in this healthcare, we'll get this economy roaring and bring America all the way back.
I want to get to the next viewer, but I also want to ask you, Secretary, a quick question. Some of these states that have unfunded pension debt, right? We're throwing trillions of dollars at this effort to renew the country, renew the economy. Should they get money if they have not taken good care of their finances before this happened?
That's an interesting question, and let me explain it again with that graph. It's not a graph, hold on. It's the picture. All those states with red on them, those are states that can't afford to pay their bills. This is 2019. And what happens is they do pay their bills because they have balanced budget laws that they have to balance the budget. And the way they balance the budget is they take away the pensions from state employees. So they think, well, we're just going to make a lot of money later and we'll use those or that money to replenish the pensions. That's what she's talking about. Now, Trump is going to blame this on Democratic states like it's a Democratic problem. Take a look at all the red states. You can tell a lot of them are not Democratic states. In fact, Oregon is Democratic, and that's in the black. Who else there? Can't remember. Okay, I'm not even going to name the states. There's too damn many of them. Let's move on.
We're not looking to bail out states that were poorly managed. What we did do in the CARES Act, there was $150 billion that was allocated to the states for coronavirus expenses. One of the things the president just instructed me to do, and we sent out guidance on Friday, that states can use the money for policemen, firemen, first responders.
That John Oliver is a sexy
limits,
human
so
being.
we can make sure that none of those people who have been fighting the front lines in any way are impacted.
Okay.
My husband and I both work at our local church, and I think a lot of us churchgoers are just wondering when we might be able to get back to an in-person church service. Do you have any idea when this might be?
My mom was a Lutheran
I
minister.
hope it's going to be
God
very
is
soon,
everywhere.
Because
so
I'm
you're
seeing
fine.
things that I don't like seeing. I see some churches, they are literally staying in their car with the window closed. I guess it comes out through the radio, the service. And they were getting arrested. And they're sitting in a car, and the cars are even far away, and they say, close your windows, so it has to come in electronically. And I'm saying, why can't they do that? Or they'll go in a field, some field. And
Does anybody know what he's talking about?
A good minister, pastor, it could be a rabbi, it could be a person of faith.
An imam?
And what happens is in some places, not in all places, I would say in most places they really sympathize, but I do. And I've been listening to services over the last 4 or 5 weeks, some very, very good people. And everybody knows who I've been listening to, and we go different person. Last week it was Cardinal Dolan at St. Patrick's Cathedral, which a place I'm very familiar with. But we've had pastors and ministers. I will say this, it's wonderful to watch people.
Yeah, I mean,
over
there's services that can be broadcast
laptop.
over the radio. You can just get a
But it's not
transmitter
like
and then
being in a
broadcast
church.
to
And we have to
FM
get our people
97.3
back
or
to
whatever.
churches,
But
and we're going to start doing it
I haven't
soon.
heard of anyone
The
getting
Attorney
arrested
General
for being in their
sent a
car.
memo directing U.S. attorneys to be on the lookout
Oh,
for
hey, Dee.
health restrictions that could interfere with constitutional rights. There are a lot of people who cheered that because, you know, they do want to go back to church, and as you're talking about. But there are others who fear he might be encouraging people to do things that might be unsafe at the time when some states are going up.
Yeah, no, he's not doing well. There's not too many states that I know of that are going up. Almost
All of them?
everybody is headed in the right direction. I was
No.
with a man who got hit very, very hard in many ways.
I'm going to go over this again. Part of the presidential guidelines for reopening, which he had nothing to do with, are that states have to have a downward trend of new cases for 14 days in a row. None of the states have done that. None. Not even Washington State. We had it first, and we're actually doing quite well, but we've still got a lot of new cases.
Over the last little while, Phil Murphy from New Jersey. People don't realize that's the single most dense state.
That is
Who
right,
would think
Andy.
that? But New Jersey is very dense. The Manhattan overflow, the New York overflow. And those numbers are now even coming because of very, I mean, not his fault. He's doing a really good job as governor. I'll say it. He's a Democrat, and I'll say it. And he's been through a lot, even himself physically. You know, he just went through a very big problem.
Here's the question. If you're Murphy
I
and
think
you're a
he's done really
Democrat,
good job.
do you use
And even
Trump's
those numbers are
endorsement
coming
in your
down.
re-election
New Jersey
campaign?
was really hit hard. No, I think most of the numbers are coming down. We're on the right side of it, but we want to keep it that way. But we also want to get back to work. The people want to get back to work. You know, I've seen it more
I just
and more.
want my job
People
to
are saying
exist.
that also causes death. It causes drug addiction. It causes suicides. It's a lot of death caused by that. There's no win here, just so we all understand. There is no win. This is not a situation where there's a win.
You've just said several times that you're winning.
The job that this country has done, the people of this country, it's incredible how they've endured, how they've suffered. That's why we are. In terms of deaths, it's a tremendous number. One is too many, right? I say it all the time. Yeah. But in terms of deaths, Brett, we're at the lower level, the lowest level predicted, and we might not even hit that. It may be lower than that. And sadly, that's all we can do.
We're going to take a quick break, and our virtual town hall will continue right after this. Stay with us.
All right, let's skip ahead here. Let's try there.
Do rallies in various states.
No, let's go back.
Democrat comes in and raises.
Today, a different world than when we were all together in Scranton. What kind of GDP, what kind of employment number do you think you're going to need to get the support of the American people in November?
Our country was sailing. I would tell people
2.3% GDP sailing.
Can this continue?
Sorry, 2.1.
The greatest ever, greatest economy in history of any country.
$1 trillion deficit.
Blowing away everybody, including China. And then we had to close it. And my ambition is very quickly to get us back to where we were. And I think we can do that very, very quickly. Not if a Democrat comes in and raises taxes. They want to raise everybody's taxes. We're doing the opposite. And the payroll tax cut is very important for getting people back to work.
Because your tariff is a tax.
Number one,
you just said it.
We're getting rid of the virus. We have to do it. We're working with the governors. We're getting rid of the virus. But we got to put our country back to work. All those people out there that are protesting, they're right. They want to go back to work. We want to go back to work quickly but safely. And that's what's happening. And then next year, I think we're going to have a great economic year. We're going to get our jobs back. And I'll go a step further.
We have a
transition third quarter. We're going to have a very good fourth quarter.
But
we're going to have a great next year.
So we're 6 months to the day. When is the next Trump rally? And will you wear a mask?
Well, I don't know. I mean, everybody wants the rallies. The rallies, we never had an empty seat. From the time I came down the escalator with a person that became our great first lady, who people really love, and they love her at those rallies too. And she loves the people of this country. We have to. They're longing for the rallies. I get it all the time.
Mask or no
but
mask?
You can't
Don't
have a
tell
rally.
anyone,
I don't think we
Scott.
can have a rally with an empty stadium, with nobody in there. In other words, you may be able to pull it off for baseball or football or boxing or basketball. You can't pull off a rally.
Scott, that's our
with
little secret.
It wouldn't work out too well. So hopefully we'll be able to do rallies in the last couple of months. I mean, I would hope that within maybe the last couple of months, we'll be able to do rallies in various states.
Mr. Vice President, you went to the Mayo Clinic. You didn't wear a mask. Your critics jumped on you for that. Then you went to GM. You did wear a mask. Was that a concession to the critics?
And then took it off?
Or are you sending mixed signals there?
Well, from early on, the CDC's made it clear that you wear a mask to prevent you from conveying the coronavirus to other people. And since the president and I are in the unique positions we're in, we're tested often.
We should point out that we're tested as well. That's why we're here without a mask as well.
I didn't think it was necessary, but I should have worn the mask at the Mayo Clinic.
Wow, he admitted it. Here's the takeaway from that. All you American people working so hard and wanting to get back to work, and some of you with symptoms but not a high enough fever to qualify for a test, we get tested on the daily, like just whenever we want. And the reporters sitting across from us, they get tested too. We tested them because they're getting near us. But remember, everyone in this great country is equal.
I wore it when I visited the ventilator plant in Indiana, and I think it really is a statement about the American people, the way people have been willing to step forward, practice social distancing,
step forward.
wear
I'm stepping
masks
back
in settings
like
where
6
they
feet.
can't do that. And I just have to tell you that I couldn't be more grateful to see the way the American people responded. First, the president called for 15 days to slow the spread, then 30 days to slow the spread. And this was a great hardship on families and on businesses large and small, but the American people did it. It's made an immense difference. I believe it's saved thousands of lives.
Was he not listening when Trump was just praising all of the protesters?
All of us together, I know we'll get through this.
So you were asked to speak at the West Point graduation. There's been some pushback on that. Tammy Duckworth, a veteran, said it would be reckless.
A Democrat.
So are you going to do it?
Yeah,
and
still
do
an
you think
American,
that it's worth
an American.
the risk for those families and cadets?
There's no risk.
He's
Are
being
you ready?
attacked. He always
They
does this.
wanted me to speak. I didn't want to
Double
speak.
check.
I love West Point. I grew up near my school. Where I went to high school was right near West Point, New York Military
Yeah,
Academy.
because
So it was
his
a mini
parents
West
sent him away
Point,
to
very
military
mini.
academy because they
But
did not love
West
him.
Point's this incredible thing, incredible place. I love it. I know it well because I spent a lot of time at West Point. They wanted me to come and speak. Then they changed the date. I believe it's June 13th, and it's my honor to speak. But I didn't want to necessarily do it. What they're doing is they're coming back a little bit early. They're going to be fully tested. They're going to be very, very spread apart. I said, I want their families to be there. Mike made the commencement address. I did it last year at the Air Force Academy. Mike did it this year. There were no parents. in a big stadium,
So
and they were
sweaty.
very spread apart, and it was fine. But they asked me to do it, and I agree. The generals asked me, would I please do it? You know, I'm the president of the United States. They wanted to have
I'd
it.
love to
The
have you
vets
there.
all wanted it.
Mr. President, last thing. What do you tell your kids and grandkids about COVID-19, about this time? What do you tell them?
I sat down with my son. I sat down with my grandchildren. I said, a terrible thing has happened. It's a thing that we've never experienced. I said, I guess you could go back over 100 years and you could go to 1917 and we experienced it, but Europe.
That's a valid point, Andy, that, yeah, the president and the vice president should be getting tested because we need them to help run the country. Here's the thing. We don't even have enough tests for the Senate or for the Congress. And keep in mind that Nancy Pelosi is third in line for the presidency. So she should have access to the testing too. And the American people should have access to the testing. But this is more than a month ago. And the president was saying,
Anybody that wants a test can get a test. That's what I would just say that
we've been lied to regularly. Mike Pence said that by March 13th, we were going to have 4 million tests. We didn't. Then Admiral Giroir, as the president calls him, said we were going to have 27 million tests by the end of March. So yes, they should be getting tested. All of us should be getting tested. And it's a huge screw-up of the Trump administration and of the CDC to get the contaminated tests in the first place. So, yeah, everybody should have tests. But don't have tests for yourself and then lie to the American people about it.
Experienced it much worse. It could have been 100 million people died. But I said, something's happening.
Oh, did he say 1917 again?
Strong, and we're going to get out of it, and our country is going to be bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
No.
President Trump, Vice President Pence, Secretary
There's
Mnuchin,
no reason it should
thank
be.
you very much for your
Thank
time.
you
It's a real
all.
honor to be
Great to
here
have you with us.
tonight.
Honor to have all of you here tonight.
Good to be with you.
And thank you for our viewers at home for watching. I'll be
No,
back
you're
here
welcome.
on Fox tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern for Special Report.
All right, that's the end of that. Hey, thanks, guys. You made this enjoyable for me, and I really appreciate that. If you'd like to make it more enjoyable and you want a T-shirt, go to kevinleefather.com, and you can sponsor me there on Patreon and make it possible for me to do things like this because I have to pay $1 for my remote. It's actually more than that. It comes with the light. It's $96. No, the light came from Steve Day. Thank you, Steve Day, for being a huge sponsor of, I'm going to say the show, whatever this is. A huge supporter. So thank you again to all my Patreon supporters. I'm going to start this again so I can get the names of the two. And in case you missed this, I'll do this. There we go. That'll block my face. Everybody wants that better. I'll bring the chat back for a second. Let's see. Here they come. Two new Patreon sponsors, both of the resistor level, which means that they get a crappy T-shirt. Why is that so high? So Martha Lever and Rich Mack, thank you for supporting this broadcast and making this possible for me to share this time with all of you. Now I'm going to get rid of that. And if people are out there going like, hey, how come he doesn't have his crap together in terms of making this broadcast all go? Well, this is all new to me, and no one is coming over to help me. I do have a cat, right? Do you guys want to see the cat? Come here. Yeah. This is the troublemaker right here. This is our cat. I wanted a dog, so the cat's name is Puppy as a compromise. All right, well, hey, guys, it's been fun. Young military, I'm going to check the chat here because you guys are about 30 seconds to a minute behind me, depending on your platform. This show is for mockery, right? You mean Fox? I guess so, yeah. I mean, that's... Trump is. Okay, we can't telecommute to combat, says the general, but we can sacrifice some of the nation's finest young. We can. I mean, that's what we do. The young people are the ones who go and fight for us. This show's for mockery. Spoonie Nurse. Hi, Spoonie Nurse. It's weird that none of the Trumps didn't get sick after that Mar-a-Lago weekend with Bolsonaro. Yeah, that is weird. We're still not entirely sure how this thing is transmitted. It seems to be, a lot of it seems to be a matter of luck. Young military officers to pay homage to his ego. Oh, yeah, we're talking about West Point. Yeah, and they're all having to be flown back, which then puts them on an airplane, or if they're close enough, drive back or whatever. But they have to be quarantined for 14 days before going to the ceremony. And here's the thing. Information's been turning up lately that 14 days, probably not enough if you have it. 21 days. A friend of mine has had it now for 44 days. Ashley, if you guys know Always Ashley on Twitter, it was 44 days last time I checked that she's been sick. You were new, but you didn't get included? No, I did. You were on. I'll put you back on the next broadcast, Lizzie, because you've been great today. So you'll be back on the next broadcast. You were on, I think, yesterday's or the day before. Whatever it is, or I just screwed up, one or the other. But Lizzie, I will get you. The next broadcast is Lizzie all by herself. Okay. Hey, Navy Mom. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate that. And I assume you've got a kid in the service. Thank you for his or her service. I appreciate that. Cam Elliott, must be reacting to puppy. Yeah. Lizzie, yeah, we call Lizzie dog. See, you're with me, Lizzie. We're all about dogs. Kevin Lee Daughters, I think are you waiting for me right now?
You're just being so disrespectful to my cat.
Oh, I'm being disrespectful to her cat. I'm not. I love the kitty. I love puppy. Oh yeah, the speeches of the Trump's speech to the boy, the transcript of Trump's speech to the boy cat. I'm done. That's it. I've got no more words, everybody. I'm all out. It's been a day. Guys, it's been great. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your support. I have fun doing this. You guys make it a lot more funner. I know that's not a word, but I don't frickin' care. Okay, we'll see what happens tomorrow. There's probably going to be something. I've got some other videos I want to get out there that are backed up, so we'll get to it. Lizzie, of course you have a dog and a cat. You're a better person than we are. But we are looking at fostering a dog during this situation. Normally we can't have a dog. Well, that has to do with living situation and all that. But also, we're both in the entertainment industry, and we could go to set at 6 a.m. and not get back until midnight. We never know. We never have any idea when we're going to wrap, when we're spending the day on set. But I know when we're going to wrap today, right now.